Hello, and welcome to Jason Cavness Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. Here at Cavness HR, we're launching a crowdfunding campaign on the Refund Crowdfunder app. To learn more how you can support us and become an early investor at Cavness HR, go to https://refunder.com/CavnessHR. Our guest today is Alan Gonzalez. Alan, ready to be great today?
Good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So Alan, when's the last time you played soccer?
Oh, the last time I played soccer was a few months ago, because I actually left the team that I was, I had been playing soccer for like 10 years, but I actually left because there was so much going on. It isn't working right.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So what position do you play?
Oh, well, because I play on a small kind of indoor field. It's kind of all over.
Okay.
But almost everything except goalkeeper.
So do you like play in high school or college or anything, or just all been like, on the fun on the side thing you do?
Almost always fun on the side. When I was in school, I did wanted to play like with the rest of the teams, but I was never varsity. I was always the B team.
Okay. Yeah. How often do you go to Sound games?
Oh, not that often, actually.
Yeah.
No, maybe once a year.
Do you? Yeah. Do you have any favorite soccer teams either here in the US or anywhere in the world?
No, not really. I just watch it for the fun of it. Something I do obsess about a little bit is maybe the World Cup.
Okay. Yeah, that's going to be here, what, 2025, 2026, I think here in Seattle?
Yes.
Man, I want to get a ticket, but man, it's going to be hard to get a ticket. They'll probably go pretty fast. Mm-hmm. And they're probably expensive as hell too.
That's right. And I've never purchased a ticket for the World Cup. I think it involves lottery, and
yeah, probably so.
It's not as straightforward.
Yeah, and then what's crazy is like that World Cup is going to be like in Canada, United States, and Mexico. So I know the US has games in Seattle, Dallas, other places, right? So that might make getting the tickets even harder, because like it's not like all the World Cup games in Seattle. There might be like maybe 4 or 5 here in Seattle, maybe. I mean, I have no idea, but it's gonna be hard.
Most of the visitors to the World Cups across the world are just kind of coming from the US. So now that it's going to be in the US, it's gonna be tough to get tickets.
I know. Can you imagine the hotel prices in the World Cup?
Thankfully, I have a home around. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. The next, talk about your guitar playing. That's something you picked up recently, or you've always been doing it?
No, that's when I picked up the guitar when I was like in 3rd grade in elementary. And I remember having a guitar player, a guitar, like the instructor, he would come up with songs on the fly about us. They were funny and it was amazing. It was just a fun thing to do. And then in like 6th grade in elementary, I got to be with the middle school guitar band. So that was kind of a proud moment for me that we were chosen. Like 3 kids from elementary moved up to the next level guitar.
Now, did you play like rock guitar or other kind of guitar? Like what kind of actual guitar music did you play?
I play acoustic guitar.
Okay.
I actually did start a band with my wife and 2 other friends. And I started playing guitar, electric guitar, but I'm not good. I'm really not. No, it was tough, but it was mostly for fun.
Yeah. When was the last time you played in front of people?
In front of people? No, I've never played. Maybe the last time I played in front of people was at my wife's birthday.
Okay.
And yeah, we had a party, and then there was a person playing guitar, and I just took it from him and started playing with
So question, when you did this, were you like kind of drunk and just went in for it? Like
no,
you were sober?
I was not drunk. No.
You're like, how some people like they do stuff when they're drunk, like,
Yes.
I really don't like playing the guitar in front of people, but I'm had a few drinks,
No. This was kind of lighthearted and it was fun.
Nice. So next, what kind of dog you have?
I have a poodle dog that we found in the streets of Mexico. Yeah, so he's like a true street dog in the sense that we just picked them up from the streets.
So you all just saw him and your heart's broke? Or
well, not mine, my wife's.
Your wife's heart broke. Like, she's like, we're taking this dog home with us, Alan.
That's right.
I don't care what you say.
And she was asking me, should we do this? And then I said, well, if you're going to take care of him and all that stuff. And she's like, no, because the moment this dog comes with us, then it's going to be both our responsibility. And I said, yeah, that's fine. And it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot.
Just like having a kid.
Pretty much. And so,
how long have y'all had the dog?
Huh?
How long have you had the dog?
4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that dog was in Mexico. So of course we had to go through a bunch of process to kind of bring him into the US. But yeah.
So the dog had to get a green card.
He actually did, sort of. And then we when the dog came over here, we went through training. So he also got like education. So he's.
Do you happen to know how the dog? Can someone tell you how old the dog is? How does that work?
I don't know. When we took him to the vet, they look at the paws, and I guess based on the wear that the paws have, they told us that it was 1 year old.
Okay.
Yeah. So pretty not very.
But how accurate is that if the dog was in the street, on the street, the semen like tearing his paws up every day?
That's what I would think. But I guess I trust the vet there.
Yeah.
The one thing I did notice is that when we first got him, we cut all of the, I don't know what's the word.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, all the hair, and he has a really big scar like across the face. So probably has a lot of stories.
Yeah. Who knew Poodle getting out there doing dog fighting?
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. What's the last book you read?
The last book I read, it's actually one I'm reading right now, is The Idealist. It talks about the story of Jeffrey Sachs and how he wants to end world hunger in Africa. Yeah.
Okay. What kind of books do you usually read?
I used to read a lot of kind of technical books, and then I started doing reading club with a few friends. My wife is there and a few other friends from Mexico. And then and that really opened up my eyes to reading all sorts of things that I would never, ever read. But I usually read nonfiction more than anything, just kind of, and I like to read business, and as of late, anything that is just kind of relaxing, like, yeah.
So what's a book you read like you really like you could read this book like over and over and over again?
What's the name? I don't remember the name, but it talks about the journey that migrants take from Mexico to the US. And it's this person that really documents the journey, and he gives cameras, disposable cameras, to the migrants as they're going, and they take pictures on their journey. And it's just like, it really kind of opened up my eyes, because, migration, we all know that it happens and that it's not great and all that stuff. But like reading from people and their stories and how much they fight for a minimum wage job in the US and all that stuff, it was really, really eye-opening, and something that I truly recommend other people to look into. Just kind of makes you appreciate even more the small things that you have, everything that you have. And yeah.
So next part, we're going to go back to migration in a minute, but next part of the question, this might be even harder for you to answer. What's a book you read? You're like, I've just wasted like 2 or 3 hours of my life reading this crap. Like you was like, you could erase that time from your life. Like this was a complete waste of time. This book was horrible.
Yeah. Because it was horrible. I don't remember, but I do remember reading books that not wasted time, but I really didn't understand anything about what is being said. So it's almost like if I didn't read it.
Yeah.
One of them being The Labyrinth of Solitude.
Okay.
I just kind of went over my head. Another one, The Steppenwolf. It's just like, this is too dense. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Nice. And then you still play video games?
I do. Yeah. Well, as of a few months, not so much, but I try. I think about them.
Any favorite ones?
I am a big fan of Zelda.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know the newest Zelda installment just came out, but I haven't purchased it because I know that
you'll waste too much time playing it versus doing your business.
Well, yeah. Yeah. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So back when you were like really playing video games, you like experiment with different ones? You just like, you maybe played in Madden or played like World of Warcraft or like play different games? You just you have like a one genre you stick to?
I don't have a genre. from growing up, it was mostly kind of spending time with my friends, just kind of mostly multiplayer games, like, Mario Kart, the Smash Brothers, anything that would put like get a lot of people in the room. Those were kind of one of the big memories that I have. And the other one, of course, is just be playing by myself, like a Zelda game by myself. Like, that's it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So back to migration, right? I mean, everyone has their opinions on it, right? On the one hand, like, people, they will say like, they'll come and take our jobs, but like, I don't know if every American is trying to get paid, like, I think it's like 20 cents a bucket to pick peaches or apples or whatever like that, like it's not happening, right? And then like people always say, the migrants are coming from Mexico. And in reality, they actually come from Honduras, Guatemala, Venezuela, right? I mean, it's a complicated thing, right? With no easy answer. On the one hand, people will say, well, they should follow the laws, but like, if you come from Honduras and you get like seeing people get killed every day, like you're trying to take better care of family, and what you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy, I think.
Definitely not easy. And I mean, I grew up in a big part of my growing up was in Texas. There was a lot of migration, a lot of people coming. And I don't know, I've thought about this, but like, is it because you come into a country and you know that your status is kind of not legal, so you tend to not break the law?
Yeah.
I mean, and with that same person, if they were in their country of origin, would that same person not break the law over there?
That's a good point.
So I personally think that because your status is not, I mean, and you do something and then you're kicked out, you tend to behave better in this country, in a country where you're not supposed to be. And then of course there's people that just don't care. Like, you'll do whatever you do wherever you are, regardless of your status. Are they coming to take jobs? I mean, yes, they are taking jobs. Do people that are living here want to do those jobs? Probably not. Are they okay? And because they are also in this kind of status, they tend not to make a big fuss about
being taken advantage of, or like being screwed over.
Exactly.
Not getting a raise they're supposed to.
That's right.
Yeah, I know when I retired from the Army, my first job, I worked at a seafood plant in Alaska, right? And like all the workers were like on the line, like in the fish, they're either like Filipinos or like Somalians or like third country Africans. We could never get to the United States. It's like they wouldn't do it because it's like backpacking work, and we pay good money. They got paid. People that average like $6,000-7,000 a month for doing up there, but it's backpacking work, and no American would do it. Maybe we had like a couple of Americans up there, right? But that was it, right? It's mainly Filipinos, and the same thing with I know you heard about this, but in Florida, there's passed some kind of immigration law where like if you're like an employer, you'll be some kind of something happened, right? So now pretty much all the, potentially undocumented workers are just left Florida. Like there's no construction jobs, no one to pick the fruits or whatever. And did a video with this one lady, like, oh, I'll do the job. Like she quit after 30 minutes. Like, I can't do this,
That's right.
And then one thing too, they were like, I think they get paid, like, I'm making this up, like $1 a bucket, whatever. And the most American, like $1, And so this one American made like $20 for one day, right? Because she couldn't do it, right? Or usually they would pay like, a regular worker like $3-4 a day, right? Because they know how to do it so fast, right? So America, like, you need to get paid like $30 an hour. Like the farmer's like, I can't afford to pay people $30 an hour, So it's just, I don't know.
It's tough. One of the ideas, I mean, at some point, can we do something that basically improves the living of people in their countries of origin, such that they don't want to emigrate? And if they do, it's because if it's a choice, it's a personal choice, not because you need to. And one of the things that really stops that from happening, in my opinion, is kind of corruption.
Yeah.
And I've been really thinking about, well, what are the potential ways in which we can kind of reduce corruption in countries of origin? And maybe the person that came into power has a good heart, and he or she started with the right intentions, but in the journey of getting to the power, then it gets corrupted.
What's that thing? Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Something like that. Yes, absolutely. So what are the tools that we have today such that we can kind of change some of that as well? Some of the things I was thinking, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, like having some sort of computer system that would intervene, or that the absolute decision wouldn't be just in one person. I mean, in this book that I'm reading right now, they talk about not having doctors in Africa, in rural Africa. And so here in the US, it's like AI is being regulated. In one of those regulations, well, AI is like not supposed to, or should not make a medical diagnosis. Well, when your alternative is having no diagnosis at all, what could go wrong? Well, I guess a lot of things could go wrong, but what is the downside, the terrible downside of having an AI doctor in rural Africa? Well, where the alternatives not having anything at all and the patient just dying. In the same sense, could we have some sort of decision maker, governmental decision maker that is AI, that can assist, or that can, not because we don't have anything, but because they can make decisions, and in some ways not being enticed by corruption in the same sense that a human does. Now, is that going to be unbiased? No, it's not going to be unbiased. It's going to be completely biased on how it is being trained. But I still think that might be better than just going around and paying the judge money and then having him or her vote in your favor.
Yeah. No, that kills me, like, people are like, oh, they're all coming to like do crime and drugs, whatever. Because I know some are true, but like, you got to think like this single mother walking her 3 kids from Honduras, like thousands of miles. Like, are you kidding me? Right? Like, just trying to get a better life. Another thing that kills me too, like, like border town, like Brownsville, El Paso, there's a big a town of Arizona, a lot of them go through, right? And then like, and I know like, I know like Governor Abbott and the governor from Florida got a lot of criticism for like shipping something like New York City, Chicago. And like New York City, like, we can't handle this, right? Like, are you kidding me, right? You're New York City, right? You're the one saying, bring other people over here.
Yeah.
Like, give this border town some relief, right?
Yeah.
I know the biggest one, they, I think Governor DeSantis, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It was him or Governor Abbott. They sent like 100 immigrants on a bus to Martha's Vineyard, right?
Yeah.
And Martha's Vineyard, like, supposed to be like this, progressive far left, like all kumbaya. And like, I'm making this up, maybe like within 2 weeks, they got rid of all the immigrants, right? And they didn't want to take care of, So I just think it's hypocritical to say, bring everyone over here, but then,
when you actually have the problem in your hands.
Yeah, it's a big difference, right? Because like, I don't know, El Paso, like El Paso, Brownsville, and like,
it's tough. And then, when you do put yourself in the migrant's shoes, like, what's your alternative? Like getting killed, just not having food. You're gonna do whatever you want, whatever you need to do to get to a better life.
Yeah.
And so
another thing I think most Americans don't think either, like, their better life is like a minimum wage job, picking fruit or working at McDonald's, right? I mean, it's not like they're coming here and become the CEO of Apple, right?
Right.
Or become, they're not coming to be the CTO of DevMatch and something like that, making $100,000. They're like bare existence, which is, and it's a better life for them,
Yeah.
It's tough. I don't know. Like I like to say, people way smarter and with way more money than me haven't figured out yet. So,
well, let me just say that the CEO of DevMatch is also a minimum wage job right now.
For now, yeah. So were you born in Texas or Mexico?
I was born in Mexico.
Okay.
But I did go to elementary school when I was, I did elementary in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
In fourth and fifth grade.
Okay.
And then I went back to Mexico, and then I came back for some high school in Houston as well. Then I finished my school, and then I came to Seattle.
It was great for you. Like, so the years in Houston, right? You go back to Mexico. You go back to Mexico, your friends like, oh, you're a fucking gringo Mexican, you're a Texan, they make fun of you for that, or?
No, not really. I don't recall that. Maybe because my very first 5-6 years were in Mexico, I didn't stand out that much.
Okay.
Because I know there's a lot of Chicanos, what they call.
That's what, yeah. I haven't heard that term in a long time. Cause I'm from Texas too. Yeah,
that's right.
I heard that term in a long time.
You can tell a Chicano in Mexico, but I think I don't know. I just nobody really noticed that.
So why you decided to move to Seattle of all the different places?
Because I was offered a job at Microsoft.
That's a good reason.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good reason to move somewhere.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity.
So what got you interested in software development, coding, and all that kind of tech stuff?
I think it must have come from my uncle. David, he was a programmer. He's like 10 years older than me, and he was taking care of me. And I mean, I was maybe 8 years old, and the thing that he asked me to do, like kind of to pass the time, was to program code. So we had a computer.
And how old were you when you just started?
Eight years old, yeah.
And so one thing, like, of course, schools get a lot of criticism about other things. One of my criticisms, like, they don't start teaching coding like maybe junior, senior high school, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how can we influence like schools to start doing this like elementary school? Like, because coding is like something everyone needs to know, especially just people coming up, right? Like, why do you think there's such a disconnect there?
Well, it's relatively new in terms of other kind of professions, like I don't know, doctors or lawyers, all that stuff. But a career, a successful career in computers, something that is relatively new, I think. So maybe that will happen. And certainly we're seeing some of that. Like when you have a career in computers, it's usually good paid. And I think that's going to reflect the school's curriculum. But exactly what you're saying is something that I've been advocating for a long time. Like telling a computer what to do is something that is kind of like technical literacy is important, whether you are an attorney, a doctor, a farmer, anything. There's always benefit from knowing what computers can help you do and how to use them to your benefit. So that means just kind of teaching computer science earlier in your education.
From your time doing all this kind of tech stuff, are some people like more inclined to be successful software developers that like certain characteristics they need or not need?
Maybe 10 years ago, I would have said yes. But today, I don't think so. I think you mostly need to be able, or you need to enjoy solving problems or being able to kind of focus. I think that's a critical aspect of this. Not necessarily, not all great software engineers are exactly the same. As I progress and I meet more software engineers, there's a wide range of software engineers. Like there's this person that is incredibly hardcore and can diagnose the most incredible problems at the micro level, at the systems level. Then there's the fantastic software engineer that is also a salesperson, like somebody that can sell the engineer, but they're also a software engineer. They can, and they end up not selling sort of products, but ideas, or convincing people to do things in some way. Like, I think we should do this architecture, and people don't agree. Well, now you have to kind of convince them or sell to them that this is how it should be done. So it's a wide range. It's no longer the person that is kind of all night in their computer, just kind of hacking something, which it's what I thought a great engineer was. But nowadays, no, there's a wide range of skills that you can use to become a great software engineer.
Yeah, one thing I like about it is that anyone can do it, right? Because I used to follow this guy on YouTube. I think I still follow him, right? Like he was like 70 years old. He just posted on YouTube. I know what I'm doing. I want to learn how to do Python, right? He would post videos every day if you want to learn Python, right? And eventually like post some great stuff. Like, man, this is fucking cool as shit, right? This guy's 70 years old, retired. He wants to do something. He taught himself Python using YouTube, and he documented all on this, like
that. Yeah, that goes like 10 years ago when I was describing what I thought a great software engineer was. A friend of mine told me that great software engineers are kind of hard to find, and that he told me this: if you're not a great programmer, you're never gonna be.
Yeah, because
you can learn it yourself. You can push yourself. You can do it yourself. And there's so many resources, kind of almost talking to yourself and just kind of working until you succeed to a problem. I thought it was very much true when he said that to me. Nowadays, I'm not sure. I think a lot of this stuff can be taught. Another thing that I heard recently, for instance, is that only 0.05% of the world population know how to code.
I'm surprised it's that high, to be honest with you.
And we live in a digital world. We live in a world where only of the world population can create. So imagine if we lived in a world where only 0.05% of the people knew how to read and write.
Or yeah.
And so now with all the technology advancing and allowing people to be able to create software, that 0.05 is going to grow. So it's only going to make it better, I think, because more ideas are going to be translated into programs.
Yeah.
So
and that 0.5 of code, like how them are actually good coders, right? Like
yeah,
it's probably even lower, like I guess, but how many actually like building stuff and like actually
much smaller than that. So I actually,
and that's why those people get the big bucks.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually, when I heard this quote, I dove into doing some research, seeing if I could trace the source of this 0.05% and what it means. How do you count somebody? And I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
There's some pages there that do have this number, but I'm still yet to find the true meaning of this number. But it's still, the point I think is still correct, that there's very, very, very few individuals that know how to code.
Here's one for you. So supposedly, suppose I've never played a guitar. I say I want a guitar, but I spend 1 hour, just 1 hour a week for 1 year practicing guitar. After that 1 year with only 1 hour a week, I'm better than 95% of the people in the world at guitar, right? So it's not a high barrier to become like top 5% in anything, right? So
that's right. That's right. That's what I'm saying. Most of what you need is the ability to focus. First, you need some sort of incentive, like an incentive to do something, to do anything. You need to be incentivized to do that thing. Maybe it's an extrinsic thing. Oh, I'm going to get paid. Or maybe it's an intrinsic thing. Oh, I'm going to feel good after I do this. But you need to have that. And then the next step is just kind of learning and then being able to kind of focus and kind of think through problems and kind of remember and just kind of.
So I could be wrong, but what's your advice on this? Like most like coding academies or boot camps, or they'll tell a brand new developer, like, or someone wants to learn code, like learn HTML, CSS, C++ first, right? Or Java first. So they do that, so just like jump straight into the Python or something like that. What do you think they should do?
Well, I think the software engineering kind of industry is very broad. I think they are tackling what is most probable that is going to give you a job right after this coding academy ends. And the more jobs, I mean, there's a ton of web development jobs out there. And now there's a ton of also kind of data science jobs out there. So they're going to teach you Python for the data development, or for the data science. They're going to teach you HTML for your web development. So I think for them, it's just kind of, it's not like, how can we create the most well-rounded, amazing software engineer? It's like, what can we teach you right now that's going to get you a job tomorrow? That's it.
To, say, hey, this is the reason you paid $57,000 to 6-year course. We're going to get you a job afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think their decision-making around their curriculum, yes, it is rounded. Well, I cannot speak for any coding academy, but this is what I think. It is mostly, it's a business. And yes, you're improving someone's life, but at the end of the day, you
got to pay the bills, right?
You have to pay the bills, and the way to improve their life is to get them a job. So how are you most likely to get them a job? Well, you teach them the skills that are on demand. So
next, talk about your love of teaching and what you're doing. I think it's called the Dub Developers.
Oh yeah,
talk about that real fast.
Yeah, so I think mostly it started when I was in university. I co-founded a computer club, and I was very much passionate about sharing and just kind of sharing And I created with some friends the computer club, which was amazing. And then that's where I learned that, hey, like sitting down with people, it takes a long time when they have an issue with their code. And there's no, and when we launched this, we came with like 40, 50 people. And we were doing workshops and all that stuff. And I said, well, what if I create a software that just basically gives you the problem and then anybody can solve it? And the software will tell you if it's right or if it's not yet there. And so that was the beginning of what a software that I created called Teddy, which is actually still, I don't know if we're showing this. This is it.
Okay.
So this is the software that I created when I was in university, and it's basically an online judge, and it helps you. It has a bunch of problems, and then people just basically go through the problems and create a solution. So here's a problem, just says add 2 numbers, and then you here and then submit the solution. And anyways, very, very much passionate about computer science education. And then when I went into my master's, I was looking for places where I could do the same. And I found this developers club that was teaching web development skills to other students. And so I just offered myself as an instructor.
Yeah, but how many hours per week do you spend on this?
Well, doing my master's.
So you're not doing it right now?
I am not doing it because it's mostly students. It's students instructing students.
Okay.
So when I was a student, I was able to participate, and then I graduated, but it was maybe 2 hours per week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're a startup founder now. You have your own startup, but yet you got your master's in entrepreneurship from University of Washington, right?
Yes.
Some people will say like it's like an oxymoron to go to school to learn entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
Like, what did you actually get out of this master's degree?
Yeah. Before I did the master's in science of entrepreneurship, I did an MBA. And the MBA, I went into the MBA. It was even worse, some people would say, to go into an MBA too, because if you want to do entrepreneurship. But nonetheless, I was very intrigued in this MBA because it was all about leadership. It was focused on leadership. And prior to entering this MBA, I had already founded a nonprofit. And the challenges, my biggest challenges, were not in the technical space, were not in the project management space, we're in the people space. And I said, well, leading people is really hard. Convincing people to go into let's say we all have a vision. We all want to go in the same direction, but we all have very different opinions on how to get there. And that's really, really challenging. And that's why I was attracted to the MBA in the first place. And when the MBA finished, I was just like incomplete. Like, it was just like, this is amazing. Was
it you're incomplete or you're just a glutton for punishment?
What's that?
A glutton for punishment. Got one master, let me go get another one.
No, not at all. Not at all. I knew from the second, like many years ago, I knew that I wanted to do startups, and I didn't call it startups. I just kind of said my own business. And I knew that what I had seen in that MBA was really, really good in terms of corporations, large corporations, and leadership, which is what I got in there for, which is amazing. But I was still lacking all the kind of resources for launching a business from scratch. So I looked and I said, well, what else can I do? And in the meantime, I sort of started another startup, which is not public anywhere. It's called WeGo, and it was all about compostable commerce, or like headless commerce. So basically, it's a tech startup, right? So I was doing this work, and I said, like many tech founders think, this is an amazing idea, and I'm going to create it, and people are going to realize that this is an amazing idea, and everybody's going to come, and everybody's going to be happy. But that didn't happen. The moment when we closed doors for that startup, nobody cared. Absolutely nobody, because I had spent very, very little to begin with. I was so focused on the technology, very, very focused on the coding, on the infrastructure. It was amazing. Like, it was really, really, really something special for me, as it was my previous startup. Like the technology aspect is something that really fascinates me. But I wasn't really running a business. It was like a side project. So with that experience, I said, okay, what other options do I have for learning? Okay, I know a little bit more about leadership, but I still need fundamental business skills for starting. And that's what this master's was. During the interviews, yes, they tell me there's going to be a lot of overlap between your MBA and this program, because it's essentially an MBA focus. Doesn't matter, it's quite different from my perspective, because I already went through an MBA and I already know that I didn't get what I needed for this. So I still want to do it. And then I went ahead and did it, and everything changed. Like, I met so many amazing people. Like, the startup ecosystem at UW is mind-blowing. It really, really changed everything. And it really taught me that even though we were seeing the same things in finance, in marketing, in product management, like, all the projects are your own startup. So you immediately put it to practice. And that was fascinating, because it's different than just kind of learning something in theory and then just kind of translating, how does this look in your own startup? And there's like so many business competitions. There's so many clubs by students to help you either pitch, or just hackathons that help you build products. And the networking was also phenomenal. A lot of the instructors were like either investors or they know critical aspects of entrepreneurship. And it was just like fascinating. And it was just sort of inspiring to see, and everybody around you is doing the exact same thing. It is very, very different. So from my MBA, I probably was the one, either the only one. My class was very small, like 20. But I was the only one like really, really was ready to jump into startups. But over here, everybody's doing the same thing. And that's kind of different. And the classes were like also very, very meaningful. Things that I still use to this day. So throughout the MBA and the master's, I try to kind of save all the worksheets, all the materials, because right now it's not used, but it will be used at some point. And so I bring that. So for instance, when I was doing when people were interviewing for the position, DevMatch, they surprised me asking me, what's the culture at DevMatch? I was like, oh, I don't know. And I just kind of answered something, but it really got me thinking, what is the culture at DevMatch? And so I went back into all those kind of workshops I was given, both in the MBA and in the Masters of Science. And it gives you a very good framework. You're not starting from scratch. So I would say it was really good.
Okay. So a couple of questions, like, is there a set number in the entrepreneurship program each year? Like only 10 people get in or 20 people get in?
The classes are around 25 to 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a one-year program?
It is a one-year program.
At the one-year program, like what?
I would say it's the minority.
That people learn it's not for them, or what are the case may be? There's
many reasons. Yeah, I would say, I personally think that there's like, I want to be an entrepreneur, and there's I have this idea.
Yeah.
And so when you have just one idea, and then we all know that most ideas are not business, viable businesses. So when you realize you only care about this one idea, but if you really cared about the entrepreneurial journey, those are the people that continue for too long, maybe, but like
they're definitely, yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, definitely, yeah. That's a good case. Like on one hand, you have people in the startup community say, within 9 days you don't have like product market fit, MVP, $1 million MOR. Like, what are you doing? Quit, right? Other hand, people say, well, I don't care if you spent 10 years, you still have no product, keep on going, right?
Yeah.
It has to be somewhere in between, I think, right?
Absolutely. Another great thing about being in the Masters of Science in Entrepreneurship, again, is the ecosystem. One of those being the startup hall space. That's another place where there's a ton of kind of founders doing the same thing that you are. And you see people that have been doing this for a very long time. Some people that are just kind of, oh, I had this idea, let me try it. And so I don't think there's a way or like a path, a set path to being an entrepreneur. There's definitely best practices, but I think you are on your own journey, and maybe you enjoy the process, and maybe it's going to take longer for you. I was just thinking about this the other day. It's been a year and a half since DevMatch started, and I enjoy a ton of the aspects of creating the company. If I were, on the other hand, obsessed with the outcome, would it have been taking me that long? Because I don't care about the process. Like, just take the shortcut, do this thing. Let's get to 100 customers. Yeah. Whereas another person might say, oh, let's think really hard about how we're going to hire, and let's do this architecture
the long-term
diagram.
Implications of decisions.
And so why? Because you enjoy that, maybe, or because that's the way that you were being taught how to do something. So as many things, it's very complicated, but it is a combination of a sense of urgency and enjoying the process. I think those are
there's many ways to success. Like, what works for you might not work for me, might not work for anyone else, Next, let's talk about hiring, right? So I sat on one of your meetings, right? You have a pretty diverse team, right?
Yeah.
I mean, pretty diverse, right? Having said that, some are probably see that same group of people say you're not diverse, right? Because diverse means different things, different things.
Correct.
Like, I believe diverse hiring is important, but you should always hire the best person. I believe hire the best person. You find the best person across all demographics, right? I mean, it's about the same. So what was your approach to hiring, and doing that and bring on? Another thing too, like, people will say, like, first, like, talk about leadership, like, you have to convince someone, like, basically work for free, or, like, less money than somewhere else you got to start up, right? Yeah. I mean, that's not easy to do. And then, like, I always say, like, diverse hiring is good, but, like, it's not easy, right? You have to get, like, close. You can't say, I'm gonna hire an Asian female from Vietnam, right? Yeah. First, they have to want to work for you, Yeah. And first they, have to do the job, right? So can you talk about, like, break that down a little bit?
Absolutely. And I'm gonna start with something that happened to me that kind of formed a lot of well, I don't know if it formed it, but, like, I still remember it. So I had already stepped down from being the CEO at omegaUp, which is the nonprofit. And I felt that I had some experience in my hands being a CEO. So I went to an incubator that was incubating nothing but nonprofits in Seattle. And I met with this guy, and they were hosting a roundtable because they were looking for CEOs. And I came to the table thinking that I had a shot at running one of the businesses. And at some point, this person that was kind of the owner of the incubator told us, I'm only going to hire a woman for this thing. I don't care if I get sued. I don't care. No. I'm only going to hire a woman for this CEO role. And I thought about it. And another very interesting thing happened there. When the meeting finished, we were offered mugs for coffee, and then everybody left the office. I left my mug in the table, whereas other people kind of took their mug and took to the kitchen. So I learned a lot about in that meeting. And then I was thinking, on my way home, I was reflecting about that, what that felt, that I thought I had experience in being a CEO. I thought I had experience in the education nonprofit. Like, it seemed like a good fit. And yet this person is saying, no, I'm not going to hire you because you're not a woman. And I said, okay, I mean, you want to diversify your team, or maybe it makes sense for this person to be a female. But that's something that I had never experienced, never, ever. And it just led me to think that, well, this is something that happens to other people all the time. Maybe they're blunt like that. Maybe they're not so blunt. But it really I was just like surprised that, why are you not even considering me? Like, what if I have something to show? What if I actually have some experience, like, that I cannot control? That kind of was something that happened to me. I didn't get the job. I didn't get the job. then I started doing my own startups. At that point, I had already been at omegaUp, and I'd done a bunch of hiring at a nonprofit, which is tough because you have to convince them to do something for very, very cheap and meaningful in economical sense. It is just, you're just going to change someone's life. So anyways, that was tough. But I do remember one time, again, when I was in my MBA, I went to a computer club, the ACM computer club at UW Bothell. And that was amazing because I was always trying to get myself in front of like computer clubs. I like them. And I went to this pizza party, and there was this young lady there, and she was kind of just with a friend, just kind of talking about stuff. And I started pitching. Well, I didn't think, what did I say? I said something like, I want you to work for me or something like that. I want to bring you into this project. She's like, okay, but reluctant. And then when we started working on this thing, I don't think she had experience like with software engineering. And then we spent an evening, like 4 or 5 hours, no, like 4 hours, just walking through the process of creating a pull request. This is how you do it. This is how you make the change. Creating a pull request is your way of telling the team that you're done with this change and that you want to contribute it to the main base of the code. And that's how you do it. So now that you've done it, I want you to take this other bug and fix it, and then create a pull request. And tomorrow or like the next day, you tell me when you're done. And then I turn off my computer. And then I went to sleep because it was late. And then I woke up, and then I opened my computer, and the first thing I see is a pull request from her. And she got continued going, and then she fixed the bug. And she didn't only fix the bug, she fixed it in other places where that thing was also happening. Wow, this is amazing. This is great. This is fantastic. And she developed most of that startup that I was working on that time. Yeah. So I don't know, but I remember that very vividly because I said, well, there's really good people out there that really want to do things and that really care and that really want to this is just kind of for them.
Yeah.
So how do you find them? And that's kind of one of the big aspects of DevMatch, which leads me to a very similar experience with the newest, who you met, software engineer in the team. We use DevMatch for hiring her, and she's a freshman. I didn't know she was a freshman. I didn't really go in depth with the resumes. I just gave them the DevMatch assessment.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of resumes either, to be honest with you.
And we started doing the final rounds of interviews, and then I was kind of certain who I was going to hire. And then I think this engineer was the last one. And she fixes the code in front of me, blah, blah, blah. And then starts using keyboard shortcuts that I didn't even know on VS Code. And I was like, wait, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And I was like, boom, immediately. And then we were having a lunch with the team. And then somebody asked her, what year are you in? And she's like, oh, I'm a freshman.
You're mind blown. Like,
and then I went and looked at the resume, and she had no prior experience in software engineering. And so I guess my point is that even though everything I do or I ended up doing in software, like in my career, kind of helps diversity and inclusion and just kind of giving an opportunity to people, I don't obsess about it when I'm doing it. I just create a process that is fair. And so far, it's been almost automatic that the diversity is coming into the team.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good story. Talk about your nonprofit omegaUp. That's not going on anymore, right?
It is going on.
It's still going on. Okay. Talk about that.
omegaUp is this is omegaUp. It all started with that original online judge that I created a long time ago. Because of this, I was contacted by two now friends about creating the same thing, but for Mexico. And that sounded great, because we all did competitive competitions using very archaic software that was very, very old and blah, blah, blah. And we all wanted to run computer clubs in our schools, computer competitions, coding competitions, and all that stuff. So we launched into creating omegaUp. And omegaUp is just basically what I described the other day, which is a platform that has a ton of problems, and it allows people to select a problem and then just kind of solve it. And then the software, the judge, kind of tells you what is the if it's correct or not.
And this is something you built?
Yes, with them. And so we had very, very insanely talented people as part of the omegaUp team. And at some point, we all got hired. Well, when we started, it was just the three of us, and then we all got hired by Microsoft at the same time, pretty much. So we all came to Redmond to start working full time, and then we realized, hey, it's a lot of work to have your own stuff, your own full-time employment, plus doing this omegaUp thing. And so we decided to create a nonprofit, and so that is the omegaUp nonprofit that we see here. And the nonprofit is mostly about the non-technical aspects of teaching computer science. So maybe bringing a mentor to a class, bringing that sense of competition to the classroom. And then omegaUp started getting a lot of kind of attention, and then it went into middle school, and then it went into elementary. And I went to Mexico to meet with the professors. They're telling me, Alan, you have no idea what this is. I mean, elementary that would rather stay inside during recess solving problems for omegaUp instead of going out there. So that was kind of, it's still going on.
What do you see the future of this being? Where do you see this going?
I think the idea, one of the biggest ideas that we had for omegaUp when I was there, is that right now, large tech companies source talent from Latin America. They go out there, do the interviews, and then bring them, pay them moving expenses, and they treat you very well. And they give you this massive salary and all that stuff, because it's cheaper. It's cheaper to do that than to say, put headquarters on a Latin American country. So we were saying, because the selected talent was not that much, the people that you wanted to bring. So what we were saying, what if we provide the infrastructure so that there's a lot of opportunities and education and all those things in Latin America, that there's so much talent that it would be cheaper for a US company to go and put an office. And so you don't have to bring that talent all the way to over here, but to open an office in Latin America and have the student, well, the population work there and live there and spend there. So that to me is kind of one of the biggest things that we could ever achieve with omegaUp.
Okay. What's your take on hackathons?
Hackathons are great. I think they're a fantastic way of just kind of having fun and just kind of meeting people and getting to build something. Sometimes you're always wanted to learn Python, or you always wanted to do something with AI, but you never really quite find the time. So hackathons are a perfect way for us to basically kind of exercise that or experiment and all that stuff.
Or hackathons is supposed to work like, maybe you have 4 people and you already know each other. You go to a hackathon. It's supposed to be like more like you go to a hackathon by yourself, meet 4 different people you never met before, and then do the hackathon. Is it a preferred way, or does that mean?
No. A hackathon is just like a party. It's just, there's no one way of doing it. So you can just basically do it like you and then you present to the judges and all that stuff. Or you can just say, hey, there's pizza, there's a theme, come on in. and do it yourself, do it with a team, do it whatever. And then there's no right way. We're actually hosting a hackathon this coming Friday.
Okay.
And we just give pizza. That's it.
Yeah. So talk about the importance of having a good designer on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think a lot of developers, they build, they don't care about how it looks.
Yeah.
But how it looks is important, right?
Very important.
So can you talk about the importance of that?
I think a piece of software is useless. It's a wasted effort if it's not used. I know that. 2 of my previous startups, well, my first 2 startups that were like 100% technical aspects didn't really achieve anything. They died. And so why does nobody know about them? Because they don't get used. They didn't get used. And the interface, or should I say the user experience, is such a big block to allowing somebody to use something. So even if you have the most amazing piece of software and it solves a very critical problem and all that stuff, if somebody does not know how to use it or cannot use it, even if they want to, it's just kind of, it's impossible for them to use it.
I think a lot of tech people get this confused. Like, I think a lot of tech people, like, my thing is like, just because it's a good user experience for you doesn't mean it's a good user experience for everyone else, right?
You're not building necessarily for yourself.
I think a lot of people get that messed up.
Yeah, you're not building. And this, I remember this from somebody. He was saying, "Oh, I wish we were working on Windows, the operating system." And he was saying, "Oh, I wish Windows did this, did that." And then he said, "Well, if I were to build Windows the way I want it, nobody would buy it, because he's just not the target audience for that particular thing." And so, well, he is, but like individuals, right? So I think that's critical. And that is something that I emphasize. And you saw this during the meeting that I invited you to DevMatch. We talked a lot about the ICP, ideal customer profile. And everything, absolutely every single thing we do starts or should start with the ideal customer profile. Who is this person? How much time do they spend on the computer? Like, where are they? Where do they hang out? What are their key points? What are their objectives? What are their common objections? All those things. Anyways, all this to say that that person should be able to use the software. And that's where user experience and design come in. And the other thing that I learned with the designer that we have right now at DevMatch, the difference and the true difference between as I understand the difference between user experience, user interfaces, and graphic design. So graphic design is just taking somebody's vision and creating some sort of visual elements that are beautiful and that really transmit the things that you want to say. And when I'm with meetings with him, we talk about the meaning of the colors, like
yeah, you're right. Like, I told a story before, like when I first trying to design my website and stuff, I had a designer, and like, I want blue. Like, what blue you want? and laid out all these number of blues. Like, what the fuck is going on here right now? Right?
Yeah.
When like blue's blue, right? No, blue's not blue. If you design on BC, and it's like, I was like, what in the world is happening right now?
It's so big. And Daniel's his name. He goes very deep into this stuff. That's why we started creating a brand design book. And we're a pre-seed company. Like, what pre-seed company?
Yeah, it's important to have, though.
But I personally feel it's important, and it helps him do his job. It helps me kind of bring all these ideas together such that I can, because sometimes I have like a vision of what we want to do, what I want to do, but how do you explain that? Yeah. And sometimes I just get frustrated and I just say, you know what, just this is the blue. This is the that we need. Boom, that's it. Instead of saying, what that is calm and they make the decision. And then now they have more data points. And so for us in particular, it's very important because when you are about to jump into an interview, you're very stressed. You're very, very stressed. Yeah. You have 1 hour to do this thing. You know that you're going to be pushed. You know that this is a job you want. So your stress levels are very high. When you come into the platform is a glitch or a very archaic old UI that doesn't really, like, you don't know how to do it, boom, your chances of demonstrating your knowledge, your skills go down. Not because you don't know, because the tool that you're using to demonstrate the knowledge is not good. And so the whole point of DevMatch is that we allow you to demonstrate your skills and knowledge and experience through real life simulations, right? That's the whole point. It's just like it's a vessel that it tells this person, it tells the other person, this person can do this thing. But if in the process of doing that, we're presenting you with a broken UI or something that is, your stress levels go up. So that's why I think that UX is usually it's very important, but for us it's like massively important because everything is in this moment, you using this tool to demonstrate what you know. So yeah.
So talk about this, right? And this is like in extremes on both sides, right? So on one side, you have a tech founder, right? And all they do is product, and they never like do any marketing, right? The other side, you have a not tech founder who doesn't have code.
Yeah.
So they spend all the time marketing, had nothing to sell, right? Work your relations on both those people, like kind of come in the middle, so to speak.
It's really tough. The easiest way that I can think of is just get different people. Just go find a co-founder that really understands what is being done, maybe because they are trying to do it as well. And then just, now having said that, I haven't done that because it's really tough for me at least I care so much and so deeply about this. And I know about people that I would love to bring in, but I just don't feel that we're ready yet. And that has slightly changed. And again, that sense of urgency. And for me was when ChatGPT started becoming a massive thing. I always wanted to bring some people that I know from my past that would be very good at product when I know I'm good at, I don't know, something else. But I always waited for the right moment. ChatGPT coming into the picture, I said, now is the time, like right now this is not going to happen again, you know? And I remember I read this, I don't know if it's true or not, but like when Bill Gates, I think he was in school, and then Paul Allen, I think, grabbed a magazine with the DIY computer that was being distributed at that time. He went to him and said, happening without us right now. Like this revolution is happening right now and we're not part of it. Like what? Well, like, we need to be part of it. So I feel kind of similar. Like I've been wanting to do this for so long, and maybe because I enjoy the process so much that it's taken me a long time. But that sense of urgency is finally making me go to people that I always wanted to bring and tell them, I need you, I want you. And what are we like, this is going to happen with you or with us or without us. Like somebody's going to create this platform. And to my surprise, some say, yes, yeah, this is amazing. Let's do something. So that's how I try to kind of find people that do things slightly different than what I do. And the other thing is that when I collaborate with somebody that is incredibly smart, and sometimes I disagree with them. Sometimes I really disagree with them, like a lot. Like we very professional, but a lot. I'm going into like fist fights with people. Just one time though, but other times, that was a very long time ago. But like but that's great because that just means that both really care about the thing being discussed, right? And so we move on, and then I reflect on what happened, and those were the moments where I learned the most. it was not by hiring somebody that is just going to tell me, oh yeah, you're great, all that stuff. It's mostly by hiring or working with somebody that is just kind of going to challenge you. So yeah.
And you have a board of advisors?
I do. I have 2 advisors right now.
Talk about like multifaceted, like how do you recruit them? How do you convince them to come on board? And what's the benefits of having a board of advisors?
Well, again, the first one I met through the UW startup community. We were a part of a program called iCorps that teaches you customer development. And he was just there to listen to our presentation. And I just felt that he really understood what we were doing. And I just asked for another meeting. And then he kind of went over all of his his background, how he can help. And I think the most important thing that really told me that, okay, this guy needs to be an advisor is I was really afraid. I was really scared during the meeting, one of the initial meetings. I felt like I was presenting to, like, he was asking me like all these very, very tough questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you not doing this? Like, who's your customer? Like, well, it sounds very obvious right now, but like, you're just this attempt at a business, and then somebody comes in and just asks you all these questions, like boom, 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 boom. And I felt like this is the right pressure that I need right now. It's going to give me a lot of sense of urgency instead of just like, oh, I have this vision of something that needs to happen and I'm going to make it there somehow. No, I need somebody to ask me all the basic fundamental questions and it's just kind of waiting for the answer. And if I say something that doesn't make sense, they're going to tell me. So that's when I decided, okay, this person, I think they really understand what we're doing and they're making me think. That was the first advisor that we got. Like, how do you utilize that? Like, you do weekly meetings with them, monthly meetings? I used to have weekly meetings, I think. That was the advisor number 1. Advisor number 2 is an actual recruiter. I mean, we do a ton of, like, we're not a recruiting company, but everything we do right now is just kind of around recruiting. We're just a tool inside the recruiting pipeline. And this guy was an actual recruiter that actually taught us how to recruiters think about stuff. And yes, I did set up meetings every week with them. I would go ahead and present to them. And then I also realized that I needed more time to present more meaningful things. So right now we're just meeting on a as needed basis. Okay. Next, talk about the thing is called the Jones Foster Accelerator. Yes. Is that something like y'all like just completed, or what is that? The Jones Foster Accelerator is an accelerator by the Foster School of Business, and they give you 6 advisors, and it's I think 6 months. 6 months or a year, I don't know, but it's around that. It's a long thing. I think it's 6 months, and over the course of 6 months, you meet with them. You set up your objectives. This is what I want to achieve. You work your objectives with the advisors, who are coming from many different areas. Maybe we had an attorney, somebody that was into software, and many different areas. And so we come together, we create the objectives, and then we work towards those objectives. And at the very end, you present to the entire group, and you're doing this alongside other 5 startups. And then at the end, you present, and if you accomplish most of your objectives, or to their kind of verdict, they decide that yes, you worked towards your objectives, whether you actually completed every single one of them or not. Then you get a grant. Okay. 25,000. Okay. And do you have to give any equity for this? No. Okay. No, which is great. So you talked about this some already, but can you talk more about the UW startup ecosystem? Yeah. So the first time I mean, it's really, really broad. There's classes. There's, of course, the Master's of Science in Entrepreneurship. There's the Berg Center for Entrepreneurship. And then outside of that, there's so many kind of clubs, like student-led efforts that help entrepreneurship. And no peer pressure. All right, thank you. And there's also one of the biggest ones. It's a class that is, I think when I was originally, actually this class was what was 40% of what I applied to the Masters of Science in Entrepreneurship. And it's not even in the curriculum. It's called Startup Entrepreneurship. And it's taught by Greg Gotzman and Ed Lasowska. And they mix the class with MBAs, computer science, and I always forget this acronym, HDCI, Human Centered Design.
I know you're talking about. I know the lady who runs it. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah.
I think it's HDCI, something like that. And so they build teams of three, of the three kind of categories. And then they, of course, kind of build a startup. So that was amazing because Greg Gotzman's a very famous entrepreneur. He was the co-founder or founder of Rover. Madrona, so many long career. And right now he runs Pioneer Square Labs.
Okay, all right.
And Ed Lasowska is a very distinguished computer scientist. And the thing that I remember the most is that he was on so in computer science, there's this very, very, very important award called the Turing Award.
Okay.
And it is kind of the Nobel Prize of computer science. And he was in the committee for some years, determining who gets to get that award. And incredibly kind of human and just kind of down to earth and just kind of easy to talk to. And anyways, classes like that, where you bring, and one of the guest speakers was Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon. Okay. So that caliber of guests we had. So there was that. There were all the startup competitions where I met a ton of teammates. There was, of course, the Masters, the Johns Foster, the Dempsey Startup Competition. I mean, it's just all over the place. Startup Hall. How
many years have you been involved with the UW startup scene?
I mean, since I started there, even though my MBA was at University of Washington Bothell, I didn't really feel part of the university community. Number one, the classes were they were not on campus. They were on a separate facility that they have. And it was just like classroom in the middle of a business campus. So that's it. But when I went into the Seattle campus, when I started the Masters of Science in Entrepreneurship, that was completely different. Like
more of a community, so to speak.
It is entirely a community, and it was also full-time. On my MBA, I was going in the evenings.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
It is a massive difference. So even though I was already kind of sort of part of the UW community, full-time to university, like you're immersing yourself into this thing full-time.
Like you're an actual student versus.
Absolutely. That's definitely how it felt.
Yeah. So next, talk about how about this question? Like from your point of view, how does the UW startup seed system integrate with the total overall Seattle startup scene?
There's a good chunk of connections being made, and so what I will say is that, for instance, there is a VC called Pack Ventures that is exclusively focused on startups that have a tie to it. You don't have to be a student, maybe you're a professor, or in some ways tied to UW. And so by virtue of having all these events, so Dempsey Startup Competition and Johns Foster and all that stuff, those things need mentors and they need judges, so that they bring people from the industry. And that is how I've met a ton. I mean, that's how I met one of my advisors. A bunch of investors I've spoken to are just people that these programs bring and then introduce us to. So for instance, upcoming, we have investor roundtable where they're going to pick a bunch of startups and then they're going to bring a bunch of investors and then they're just going to talk.
Are you talking about the speed dating thing?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's going to happen sometime soon.
Yeah, I applauded that. So hopefully
I didn't know it was going to be this big deal. I would have.
I got an email from I think Sarah Sudo said like 80 startups applied for 30 spots. So
yeah, we'll see.
Exactly. And you recently pitched at Founders Live, correct?
I did.
So we'll talk about Founders Live in a minute, but talk about the point of putting yourself out there as a founder, like putting your idea out in the public and get it, like, I won't say destroyed, but getting like maybe negative feedback on your idea, so to speak, how you need to put yourself out there.
Yeah. It's very typical to go out there and then just kind of explain your idea. Sometimes see that they're like, oh, that's great. When in reality, I absolutely know that they're like, no, this is never going to happen. Or like, you're not the right person, or like something like that.
Yeah, as a founder, you definitely got to learn how to, say what somebody's really saying, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the best idea ever, and but you just can tell, like, they're saying, like, yeah, this shit's all fucked up. Get on my face.
It's
like,
never going to work.
I'll never give you no money. Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. And that's tough. Just so much rejection, whether it's direct or not. I've had some people just straight up tell me, no, this is like, in the first like minute of the conversation, it's like, no, I've seen this before. Like, you haven't even heard me say half of making your decision. And it's tough.
Yeah, but a quick no is always better than a delayed maybe, right?
That is true. That is in some ways, in some cases. So if the person knows how to give you feedback, then yes, that is really good. But I guess the other part that is really good is that it helps you, like you said, putting yourself out there, and then just kind of helping getting over the anxiety of being in front of people. And the other thing I learned is that it was really useful for my team.
Yeah.
For them to see, because even, we work on a daily basis, and there's still stuff that they learned when I was pitching.
I know, I never thought about it like that. That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Not only that, they see what people say about what you're doing, right? So they're like, oh man, they said this, they said that. We never thought about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And they keep talking about this event, my team, because they had a good time. They got together, they spoke with each other, and they got to see what is it that we're all constructing. Because if they don't know what we're building, then like, okay, you're just paying me so that I can change the color of this thing.
What does it really matter?
Why? Okay. So that means that they're not going to be incentivized to go and really fix the thing. They're just doing something because it was in the backlog.
Yeah. So first, cheers.
Oh, cheers. Thank you.
Yes. So talk about, those who don't know Founders Live started in Seattle like in 2016 as first feature Friday, and Nick Hughes, the CEO, expanded like across the world, right? So across the world, people do like pitch competitions. The differentiator about it is like, it's 99 seconds.
Yeah.
And that shit is not easy, right? Like, talk about the difficulty, or maybe it was easy for you, like pitch your whole company's everything in 99 seconds.
Mm-hmm. As you say, it was definitely difficult. Here's where I really worked together with the designer, with Daniel. And this I learned during the Dempsey Startup Competition, which is kind of practice. It's just so obvious, right? Practicing, but like really practice, really recording yourself. So for the Dempsey Startup Compiler, I needed to pitch. It was not 99 seconds, but what I would do is I collected a group of people that I admired and that I respected, and I recorded my pitch every single night. I would work on it all day, and then at the evening I would record it, and then I would send it to them for feedback. And we use this tool called Loom.
Okay.
Loom lets you add comments right there, and then they would add, and then I would spend all day next day just kind of again. And I did that for like a week and a half or 2 weeks before the event. And that really energized everybody involved in this project. It energized me, it energized the advisors. And I did that again. And at the end of that experience, I didn't win. We didn't win the Dempsey Startup Competition. But at the end, one of the advisors, he wasn't even a proper advisor to the startup. He was just something that I really respected. And he emailed saying, hey, this thing that you're doing, you're just putting yourself out there, just kind of, you have earned my respect. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was just kind of, wow.
That's a win right there.
That is amazing. And another one of our mentors said, I would never do this. I could never do this. So I commend you for doing something like this. And I took that approach to John Foster and just kind of recording myself, not John Foster, to the Founders Live. And I just kind of recorded myself over and over again, and just kind of compressing everything kind of forces you to think, what are we doing? Like, what is the one core thing? This is one of the things that I learned in that class from Greg and Ed. What is the one thing, the absolute one thing that you're better at that absolutely anybody else in the world today? Just one. What is it?
That's a very good thing. Yeah, that's a great point.
And so you need to know what that is for your startup. What is the one thing that you are going to be the best in the world at, and go all in, just push you. And so I think it really helped us. It also helped me in that presentation. I was very nervous because I oftentimes overdo stuff. And I remember we got this coach, Melissa.
Yeah. Melissa Reeves, I think.
Yes. She's great. And she was very, very pleased with the work that we had done for that presentation. And that made me good. And then I went ahead and presented it, and we didn't win again. And I emailed Melissa and I said, we didn't win. What do you think we should be doing? And she told me that basically it's not random, but you should not kind of trust, like, people vote for the slight less for the small reasons. Maybe they were wearing a nice shirt or something, or like I saw my neighbor and they were voting for this startup, so I did it as well. And to just kind of let it go. Not that I was obsessing about it, but she just kind of let it go and just kind of keep it. So it was a very nice event. But more than any, if I can take one thing out of that, it was what it did for the team. So that's
one thing I like about Founders Live is that it's not a bunch of two to three judges. Like, it's the crowd voting, and not only that, the crowd gets to ask the questions, right? So when I would pitch, like last year, like, you have to be ready for any type of question, right? Like, you just can't. You got, like, if you have 3 judges, you kind of research on LinkedIn, like, this guy's a tech guy. He might ask me a tech question mark. Like, it all makes sense, but like, sometimes out of left field, right? So you got to be prepared to answer everything.
Absolutely. You have to be very good at. It's almost like acting, or it's almost like thinking.
I mean, it's a performance, right?
It is a performance. So I remember I was at this presentation, and they were asking questions via the chat. It was a webinar or something like that, and somebody asked the question via chat. One of the organizers asked the person presenting, "Hey, the question is blah blah blah," and the presenter was like, "No, I don't understand it. Do you think they mean this, or do they mean this other thing? We don't know. Like, there's no way to ask via the chat. Like, no.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, like, really, really, well, you know what? If you're thinking about this, then it should be this. If you're thinking about this other thing, maybe it's this other thing." And I think that is also something that really helped. I feel like sometimes people tell me that I have, what do you call it? Not passion, but like energy when I'm presenting, because I get really into it. I remember when I was presenting at Founders Live, I actually apologized to one of them because I was getting like aggravated. I was like, "No, we need to do something, blah blah blah." And I wait, I'm sorry, it's not you. I apologize. And I think that sometimes it helps you, sometimes no, because some people need to know that you're in control.
So talk about, I'm a big believer in this now, like the importance of everyone, like, starting at a early age doing public speaking, right? I'm a big thing, like, everyone's had to sell something, right? Where they're trying to find a job or like try to get investor money. Like, the importance of getting in front of people and talking, right? And of course, everyone's scared, right? Like, I'm not public speaking. I'm more scared shitless. Everyone is, right? But you got to get and convince people to do your idea, right?
I think I don't know. There's people that are insanely good at what they do, and they don't need to talk in front of an audience. But I do think that having the ability to talk in front of an audience is amazing. It's really important. But I don't think everybody. It's like one of those skills that you need to go through when you're developing as a person. So maybe it's geography, history, math, and public speaking, maybe something like that. Doesn't mean that you're going to go full on history or that you're going to do geography for the rest of your life or that it's going to be critical. But I think it's important for you to go through the experience of doing it and seeing what that feels. Maybe you are really good. Or maybe you realize that you will never speak in public. Like that's not for you. If you can develop it and that's something that you want to do, then that's fine. You can do that. But I think more as I'm thinking about this, I think more I would incentivize for some level of what do you call it? It just escaped my mind. Like being comfortable with yourself and just being confident is what I wanted to say. Confidence. I think confidence will go a long way no matter what you do.
I think a lot of people don't realize when they do public speaking, like, you know, if you're in front of a crowd speaking on whatever subject, the people that call it automatic is presume you're a subject matter expert, right? So you always have a heads up on them, right? They're not like, you know, Jason speaking, he don't know shit about HR, like, you know, or like Alan speaking, he doesn't know shit about tech or recruiting or DevMatch, right? Like, they automatically assume you know what you're talking about, right? But of course, you may or may not convince them that you're not, you get nervous and say stupid things, you know. So yeah, I know your guy, your sales guy, Liam, got a very great presentation last time, right?
It's really good.
And that's why I asked, like, how many times you practice? He said, like, I didn't practice. I was like, yeah, I figured, right? Because some people are just natural at that stuff, right? Like me, I gotta rehearse a couple of times, you know. It was funny when I do it, like whenever I like speak in front of public, like I know what I say, but I don't know what I say, right? If that makes any sense, right?
Absolutely.
I've
been
like
through that.
Yeah, like, you know, what I want to say, I don't say, you know. Everyone says I did a good job, you know, but like, fuck, I didn't say this, I didn't say that. You can't stress over that, right?
Yeah.
As long as you got the idea over that you want to express, I think that's what matters.
Yeah. For me, it does not come naturally. Absolutely not. Unless it is a topic that even when it's a topic that I care about a lot, it does not come that naturally. And I have to prepare a lot too.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, I remember one time when I was doing a conference, and I was the person that was supposed to be teaching about some aspect of Java to a group of students. And I come in here with all the confidence that I would be able to talk about this and maybe even learning on the fly. And then during the chat, there was a question and I didn't know. And then because somebody was able to ask that question, and then I didn't know. And then somebody else answered. And so they were like taking over. And I was just kind of, I felt really, really, really bad. Really, really bad. And the most recent one was when I went back to Mexico to my university where I did my bachelor's. And I thought I was going to a classroom to talk about my experiences. And then I get there and it's like 300 people in this massive conference room space.
You're like, no one, either I missed the email or no one told me this.
What is happening? It was terrible. It was really, really bad.
I mean, you think about, you know, talking in front of 300 people is the same thing, right? But it's not right.
It is not. Well, it didn't.
It's different energy.
But you can see their faces, and you can see that they're disagreeing. You can see that they're bored. You can see when they're on their phone. You can see a bunch of stuff. And so, anyways, that's why I really, really need to prepare a lot. That's why I do the recordings. That's why. And when I don't, I usually regret it.
Yeah, my problem is like I tend to talk fast. So when I talk, I give a speech. I really got to focus on like slowing down, right? And use my words. How my mind operates. Like if I'm saying the first sentence, my mind's already on sentence 3 or 4, right? So subconsciously, I try to catch up to the fourth sentence, right? And so I like instead of like saying 10 distinct words, like one da 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 da, right? So that's when I really got to focus on.
Yeah, we all have to work on stuff. For me, it's just kind of need to be prepared because otherwise I start talking in ways that are like not grammatically correct, especially in English, because English is not my first language. So I really need to prepare if I'm going to be doing a presentation.
So can you do this? Like this, I think this would be pretty cool to do. I actually think it'd be pretty fun. Like suppose you give them a speech somewhere, right? Let's say it's an English speaking audience. Like you said, like 2 minutes English, 2 minutes Spanish, like going back and forth. You can imagine look at people's face like, what's he doing? Right?
Well, I think Chicanos do a lot of that.
Yeah.
They mix English and Spanish quite a lot. But of course, if the audience does the same, then there's no problem. But no, I've never tried to do that.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, sometimes I will do that, not with Spanish, but with technical speak.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
even though I'm speaking English, I quickly transition to something about very, very deep technical aspect that nobody understands. And you lose them. And so it's tough because you care about those things and you want, and this happens to me all the time during my team meetings. I did this very, very cool core infrastructure thing. Nobody else knows about this, but I want somebody to know and to say, that's awesome. And I will dive into the technical details. And I know they don't they're not involved in this aspect of the project. So they don't really understand what I'm talking about. And that is something that I need to kind of go over. Like, you need.
This brings up a good point. How do you do this, right? So obviously, like, you have like a developer, a designer, a marketer, a salesperson, like basically like one person each thing, right? So how do you make sure everything sync, right? I think like, how do you make sure like, you have a meeting with the marketer, the marketer sales, right? Like, how do you make sure everyone sync up in the same page?
Yeah. So we follow the Scrum methodology. We have a sprint planning meeting every Monday, and then every single day we meet for 15 minutes, 9 a.m. to do a stand-up. And then at the very end, we have a demo, which is what you saw. So how do we come up with the work that we do? We have 4 priorities. Creating problems, having users, having customers, and having investors. And everything we do bubbles up to one of those 4 core priorities. And we just basically together, we say, I want to create, so for instance, the brand book. The brand book should be something that inspires the next landing page. And so in that meeting, we decide, okay, is now the time to do the landing page? Yeah, because we have the brand book ready with the pieces. And then what about technically? Is that going to impact whatever we have today? And then the engineer comes in and says, that should be fine. And so we all get together, discuss that. And of course, you come up with a massive plan and then things start shifting. And that's normal. But that's why we have the daily stand-ups to say, okay, you know what? This front page work took twice what it needed to be. So now we're going to have to push something else.
How do you do this? Like, of course, you're the founder, you're all in, you're consumed about this, right? But you're like, I guess you have like students in your team, people like, kind of part-time, whatever case may be. How do you make sure you don't overwhelm them, right? Like, just like give them a whole bunch of stuff to do. Like, how do you make sure like you give them like give them kind of some kind of balance, so to speak, with, at the same time, like make sure, hey, I'm not saying like DevMatch should be no more priority, but it should be like kind of up there, right?
Yeah. Well, this is something that we actually discussed. I feel that half of the team is because they have other things that they need to be doing, i.e. school. They're very good at keeping track of like, boom, I stopped DevMatch, I work my other stuff. And because every single day, we reduce the capacity of so let's say we have a website needs to be made and it's 10 hours of work. And the person doing this needs to reduce the capacity by 2 hours. Everybody works 2 hours per day. Every single. And so that is, I think, the structure of just having that. It helps them to think, I only need to work 2 hours. And that's it. On the other case, it is the case for the most creative work for the designer to go over. And the designer also happens to be Mexican. And so
that's the guy with the long hair, right?
That is the guy with the long hair. And so I have,
and the lady,
she's a front-end developer and UX designer. Yes. And
that's pretty good. That's doing both of them. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So that's kind of how the arrangement that we have. So Danielle is the graphic designers, is moving into user experience design. And then Catherine is the person that translates that user design Figma files into front-end designs. And then Kara is the back-end designer that can also do front-end when she.
And all three of them, or they're all UW students?
They are. Yeah. Danielle has already graduated.
Okay.
All right. But I mean, we have a fantastic team that is building the platform. I forget where I was going before this.
No worries. So two-part question. What's the culture of DevMatch right now? And is this the culture that you actually want to have for DevMatch?
Culture.
Yeah.
Jason. I think I remember where I was going now.
Okay.
I'm going to answer that first.
Okay.
Daniel is also Mexican. So I happen to know Mexican culture because I am Mexican myself. And I know that in Mexico, it is very kind of common to, I don't know if this translates well, but like putting the jersey, like putting the company's t-shirts is what we say. Well, what we mean by that is just like, even though you're not going to maybe get paid for this, you still do the work. You work really, really hard, extra, more than you needed to, because you love the company. That's something we do. And I say, well, in this case, we were having this conversation. In this case, Daniel, this is just part-time. You have to do other stuff. And in this case, putting the jersey or putting the t-shirt means stop working when you need to stop working. Like you're not going to get paid more. We're still going to be here, hopefully. And so I guess just I could take advantage of that, of the fact that he's so into the creative work that he spends way more time. But I think it's important to just say, no, I mean, do what you can with the time that we have allotted. And then, because we also want to learn how long it takes you realistically to do something so that we can better prioritize later.
Yeah. So hopefully this doesn't sound too bad. I'm about to say, I probably will be like, so I never knew what you just said. And so I know a lot of people say like, I want to hire a Mexican worker to do whatever, right? Is that part of that? Like, because Mexicans are known for being great workers, right? Is that part of that where that comes from?
Maybe. I do think that Mexicans in general, I saw studies sometime that they work the most hours, office hours, than some of the other nationalities, more than the US, for instance. And that I can see that culture that you have to work really, really hard to demonstrate that you really, really care about the company. Why? I don't know. Maybe because you don't want to lose your job. Maybe because you want to get promoted. But that's just something that is set.
Yeah. I know, like I tell people a lot of times, like, kind of what you just said, like being dedicated to the company, like, a lot of people that have jobs, right, and the job sucks, right? And like, they want to do more on. Well, I tell people, like, try to find out a job. While you're there, try to get value from that job, right? Like, try to learn a new skill, try to learn a lesson from there, right? Like, there's always something to be said for doing a good job, right? But learn something, right? I'm not saying stay in a fucked up job and like take advantage of it, but like, you're not gonna go from one job to Monday to Tuesday, right? Right. I don't want to say suck it up, but like suck it up, learn some skills, like take advantage of it as much as you can, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm going through this transition right now myself. Like I'm going through this entrepreneurship journey, and I'm working really hard. But like, am I sacrificing other stuff? Probably.
Yeah.
So, where's the line between making this thing succeed? Do you even need to take it there? If you were making smarter choices, would you need to take this much time to get where you need to go?
Yeah.
So that's kind of something that I really think about.
And what people realize, people say, I'll be an entrepreneur. People think, the timeline, right? Like, you never know what's coming up. Like, you might have a personal emergency, some of your family might get sick. You're like, okay, I'll make this up. I have $100,000 savings. I'm putting all in my business.
Yeah.
Well, your kid might have surgery. Oh shit, I got to pay $75 for surgery, right? Or I got to pay for this. You never know what comes up, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, happen to the and you need to understand that. And another thing that I also understand, that I also learned from the Masters of Science, a person that not working with, but another student there said something that was interesting to me. I always wanted to work with people that cared about what I do as much as I do. Like, we want people that really absolute technical recruitment and coding and engineering and stuff. And I need people that really, and then she comes in and she says, no, not everybody's going to care about everything. Not everybody's going to care about your startup. That's your startup. Yeah. They just want to get paid. And you need to accept that. And I said, that sounds true.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I was working at Microsoft, I was working on things that I didn't really care about. I don't really care about this, but I'm going to do it. And I expect to get compensated, but don't expect me to fall in love with this thing.
Yeah. And so there was a post on Quora a long time ago where this guy put on the Quora, like, how do I convince my employees to be as dedicated and focused on me? I don't get why they're not all in, right? And then, of course, he got blasted, right? And if somebody they say, it doesn't matter if you gave an employee 95% of the company, they will start not being as engaged as you. Yeah. It's your company. Yeah. Pay with their worth and leave it at that.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why when we started, it was actually exclusively unpaid labor. It was unpaid internships for everybody. And then as we were making progress with fundraising and through the Johns Foster or revenue, we said no more unpaid internships. Like, I know it sounds very, very, very attractive, really, really attractive, but if we can, we should pay. Yeah. And it's been working fine so far. Yeah. And the team is a strong one.
Now, your team is all in Seattle, right?
Yes.
Is plan going forward, have everyone in Seattle? Are you going to do remote stuff later on, or?
Haven't thought that far. Right now, that's kind of, undecided.
Okay. I mean, of course, remote things are way to go, but I mean, Uncle Ernie says there's nothing like getting person in the same office, right? Now, I'm not saying like you should have like, make everyone come to your office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Yeah. I think it's bullshit, but like, I think there's goodness, like everyone get in the same place like once a week or once every 2 weeks, right? I mean, you can't, there's nothing about it, right? Zoom is great, but there's something missing about Zoom.
Yeah, that's one thing that I do enjoy about kind of the engineering culture, and kind of when we created omegaUp, we met one time at one cafe in Mexico. And then we said, are we going to do this? Yes. Awesome. Let's go. And then the next few years, we're all online. And I think having the ability to write, to express your ideas in writing is tremendous, absolutely fundamental if you want to be a distributed team. Because it's one thing to be distributed, but still be synchronous, meaning I need to talk to you.
That's the big thing right there. That's the big thing, yeah.
So I would separate synchronous versus asynchronous and remote versus on-site. So synchronous, we need, whether we are in the office or remote, synchronous means that I need a meeting with you to tell you that the TCP reports need to be turned in or whatever, the TPS reports. Another organization might be able to tell you via email or a message, like, you need to turn this in. That's it. You take action when you can. And you can do that whether you're on-site or remote. Yeah. So I don't really care that much about remote versus on-site. I care more about sync versus async.
Okay, that's a good point. And how do you do this? Like, I think a lot of startup firms mess this up, right? So like suppose me, right? I'm like, you know what? We're going to communicate by Slack, nothing but Slack. But the people work for me, like, they prefer Discord, right?
Yeah.
To me, it makes no sense to say, okay, I like Slack, 8 other people like Discord, we're going to do Slack, right? Like, you should like communicate the way you people want to communicate, right?
Well, it depends with who. So with my customers, we usually do not dictate, but like we agree on a common communication mechanism. But if my customer, and this happens all the time, my customer all of a sudden texts, I will text back.
Okay.
If they call, I will call. I will answer.
So you let them take the lead and follow up.
Yes. We have an agreed upon medium of communication. But for the people in the team, that's a different story. Like for us, Discord is the way to communicate. That's it. Why? Because that's where we control, where we have access to access control, where we have all the documents, and where we have all the conversations, where we have all the history, where we have all the tribal knowledge about what we're doing. I'm really, really big on that.
So from your point of view, Discord is better than Slack?
I don't
like why do y'all pick Discord over the choice y'all have?
Discord. It was a popular choice.
Was it? Okay.
That's it. That's pretty much it.
I know a lot of people like Discord. I haven't got on there yet. I'm on Slack, but yeah, I need to look at Discord. I know so many people on there.
There's so many people in there. I would say maybe a reason was because everybody at the university uses Discord.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of the tool of choice. The other thing that I do remember making this comment is that I don't know if this is still the case, probably not. But when I had multiple Slack accounts or servers, I don't know if they call them some servers. If you wanted to go from one to the other, it would kind of sign you out and take like 10 seconds to reload you in to your workspace. And now you can talk to people in this other thing. But with Discord, what I love is that everybody has one user, and then you can add that one user to multiple servers. And then the transition from a server to another server is just like instantaneous. You don't think about it. Yeah.
All right. So back to the culture question. So what's the culture of DevMatch right now? And is that the culture you actually want it to be?
Yeah. So I think the culture of DevMatch right now is one of structure. We have a lot of processes. Like when I say that we do Scrum, like we really do Scrum. Like we track every single hour that gets of capacity. We track how much things we track how much we think things are going to take, and then as we progress, we download. I mean, I could show you all this stuff, and this all stuff is in the Azure DevOps website. And so I would say it's a little bit of a culture where you can expect structure, but at the same time, we are a startup. So even though there's structure on how you do things, there's a ton of flexibility, not even flexibility. There's the need for autonomy from whoever is employed at DevMatch. So one of the things that I tell the UX designers, for instance, I know you're just graduating and I know that you are just kind of limited in experience, but you're here to tell me what to do. My job is basically as CEO just to hire you, make sure that you get your paycheck and set the vision.
Yeah.
And then everything else, you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me what should we be doing, why, and not only tell me, you need to convince me, because I'm going to have my own opinions. And I'm not saying that as a challenge. I'm just telling you like what's my nature. Like if you tell me, Alan, we should be going all in on recruiters, why? Why are we going all in on recruiters? Well, I just met a recruiter and she seemed like a nice person. Well, no, it's very different, but you need to tell me what to do. That's what I expect. And sometimes that works. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes people just. So
I'll push back just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you are the CR, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're CR of a 4-person company, 10,000 person, you're the CR, right? I mean, do you think like, I don't say get intimidated, but like you might say that a lot, but they're like in their mind, like, okay, he's saying that, but he's still a CEO. I can't like really do this, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's something that happens quite often actually, because they'll come, I'll say that. They'll come and say, we need to do this. And I'm like, no. And they're like, okay.
And like, you failed the test. You failed my test. You failed.
Like, okay, but the what they don't know, or maybe I'm not explaining myself, is that that's just kind of my nature. Like I want to have a discussion. I want, at the end of the day, I normally I wouldn't just say no. I would say, no, I don't think that's right. And they're like, okay, we'll do something else. Right. But what I really want to happen, that's when what I really
that's you say, I'm not paying you to agree with me.
I want you to tell me why you want to do this. And when I say, I don't think that's the right idea, I want you to tell me, no, this is the right idea because this, and this. And then I'm going to get agitated because I'm going to say, no, we don't have like time to do that. And then you're going to be like, but it's critical. That discussion, that back and forth, that's where really good things happen, as opposed to, and then that doesn't always work. And so I have to fall back to, let's do this. Sometimes it is the most efficient thing to do. And that's another thing I learned in the MBA is that leadership is not like, I struggle so much with leadership. It's to define it, to kind of explain it. But I can tell you this. It is not one way of acting. Some people say that, oh, I want to be this type of leadership or this. No, you learn about the different styles of leadership, and then you apply them when they are needed.
Yeah, and people mess up. Like you have to use different styles of leadership for every people on your team, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And people are motivated by different things. Like one person might be really close to his grandmother, right? Well, if you're a good boss or good leader, you don't let that guy have time off to go to his grandparents' birthday party, right? Or this. And a lot of people you can't be a one size fit all thing. I don't think.
Absolutely, I would say so.
So many people get that wrong. So next, there's a thing called Proceed, where you're the subject of some kind of business case competition.
Yes.
Is that just recently passed, or is about to go on, or
less than a month ago? Yes. Okay. So less than a month ago, we were invited. Well, actually, one of our advisors told us about this thing, and this is yet another student effort for helping startups in the UW community. So what Proceed is, as I understand it, it's an incubator from students for students. In this case, they were doing a case competition, and they were inviting us to be the case competition subject. And that was phenomenal. That was where we really got a lot of great ideas. And we really wanted to give them the question. Okay, ChatGPT is a thing now. Engineers can solve assessments in 10 seconds. What does that mean? And what is the competition doing? What does that mean for DevMatch, and what is the competition doing? That was the prompt, more or less.
So ChatGPT, let's talk about the minute. So like, not maybe 2 years ago, Web3 was a big thing. Web3 is going to take over the whole world. Yeah. So ChatGPT, do you think is going to go the way of Web3 and kind of go fade away? You think it's actually something that's going to change everyone's life, so to speak?
ChatGPT is just the product that is built on top of the large language models. I think large language models are insanely going to change. They're going to shift things. I don't know. They're going to have an impact. And I personally was never into the Web3 kind of movement. I think I sort of understand it, but AI, for instance, was way much important to me. It was during my undergrad. It was when I was in undergrad, I thought my career was going to go in computer vision, OpenCV, and all that stuff. I was obsessed. When I was in undergrad, I was obsessed with creating an algorithm that was able to look at a road, look at all the different signs of like the road signs, like 50, the limit of the speed limit and stuff like that, and then just prevent the driver, the human driver, from going over that speed. And I have demos and stuff like that. And then I went to a university over there in Mexico, and they had a computer vision lab. And I was like, whoa, computer vision is so big that it has a laboratory with people where people come in and do computer vision. This is what I want to do. This is my life. And it didn't turn that way, but I was always very intrigued and interested in AI and machine learning. And so, yes, I do think that machine learning is going to change a lot of the jobs that we do. For us in particular, the intro of a large language model that can produce code instantaneously with high confidence that is correct is challenging, because most of the technical assessments out there are algorithmic based or data structure based that are easily solved by ChatGPT.
Talk about this hackathon you got coming on this Friday. Like, what's the goal on it? How do you put it together? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the hackathon is our attempt of getting the DevMatch platform.
And are you doing this like by yourself or like what University of Washington? Is this a solo DevMatch?
No, this is exclusively DevMatch. It's just kind of bring people together and have them solve an assessment. So
quickly, like how you advertise this? Like how do people find out about this? Like
Discord.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and how many people have signed up so far?
Just one.
Just one. Okay. Is this Friday? Okay, we got to put the word out about that.
Yes. Well, we posted it on Friday, yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a very kind of impromptu thing.
Is there like any prizes involved or like what kind of problem they solve?
Not really. No, there's no prizes right now. So this DevMatch started because of competitive programming. In competitive programming, you come in and then you compete, you solve technical challenges, and then you might get a prize or whatnot. We're doing the exact same thing, but with DevMatch assessments.
Okay.
DevMatch assessments are different. They test you in real engineering tasks, not algorithms.
Okay.
So here it matters the type of solution that you write in the engineering sense, in the sense that another human is going to read what you're doing. And when you're writing on a solution for a competitive program, it doesn't matter. Like you can hard code the solution, it'll work. Over here, we're doing different style. Like here's a problem, here's a real world problem, implement it. And that is something that has been in my mind for a long time. Okay. But, we're losing a bunch of team members that Friday because the quarter ends. And as somebody that hires a bunch of a multitude of students, that's normal. But I said, okay, let's do it. Let's do a big push. Let's have a grand finale, I guess. And so that is what the hackathon is all about.
Okay. So next, you were at Microsoft like 9 or 10 years? 9.5. How do your time at Microsoft help or hurt you at what you're doing right now?
Oh, incredible. Both. Both. It hurt me because it put me the golden handcuffs, So you're getting all these massive salary bonuses, stock awards, all that stuff. And you are working on incredibly impactful stuff. And you are working with incredibly smart people. So you don't want to leave because you're having a good time. But you also have this.
I call it, like I've heard people call it the Microsoft Country Club.
The Microsoft. Yes. I was a member for some time. And I didn't want to leave, even though I deep down. That's kind of a negative. Another thing is that it got me into the rat race. It introduced me to me wanting to get higher and higher just for the sake of getting higher and higher.
I have a couple of friends like work at different like big organizations, Amazon, and they're like, that was a great startup idea, and like have something, but like, man, I'm about to get this director role, this senior director role, and like they're like they can't figure out what they want to do, right? Absolutely.
It's tough. Especially, I remember my very first promotion. I wasn't expecting it. I was just like, I was so naive. I still am, but I was so naive, even more then. And I come into my meeting. He's like, congratulations, you're promoted. And it's like they turned the switch. Click. I was like, oh my God, this feels great. This is amazing. So I want more. And with more promotions, you get more visibility and you get to work on more impactful stuff and all that stuff. So definitely the golden handcuffs were there. On the other hand, it helped me quite a bit. Well, the golden handcuffs helped me fund what I'm doing right now. So that's also positive. But more directly, I was in my very last position. We were hiring we were hiring another person, and we were giving a ton of resumes. And I was going through all the resumes, and I'm like, this person has a 3-page resume with tons and tons of technologies. And I'm like, this is almost useless to me because I mean, this person knows Java and this other person knows Java, but like this person read a book last night and then put it on the resume. And this person has actually deployment, production experience with Java applications in the cloud or something. So there's no way for me to compare. So I'm still going to have to ask the exact same question. So that's when I really said, you know, this is not right. Like this is useless almost. So it really pushed me to pursue DevMatch even more. The other thing I noticed during my time at Microsoft is that it really formed me professionally in the sense of like running projects, like Scrum, like really being very, very good at documenting and just explaining what is it that I've done, something that I realized I really, really enjoy. And the final thing is that it really matured. It gave me a space to be entrepreneurial in a safe space. So for instance, right now, this is it. DevMatch is it for me. Like if I fail, my life is not over. It's almost over. No, I'm just joking. It's not over. But like, but it was gonna hurt, you know. But you can be entrepreneurial at Microsoft, doing entrepreneurial things, and it's kind of gonna be okay.
So going back to something else, like, why are you such a when and why do you become such a proponent of the Scrum methodology?
I just think it works. I just think it's been useful, and I think it doesn't. Well, I guess the downside is that it takes a lot of time, but it's time that is saved by not doing things that are not needed. So by doing the sprint planning, it really, really forces you. Like I didn't have principles. I didn't have objectives of things that we needed to do. But when I was running sprint planning, I was like, how do I decide that this is more important than this? And this is more important than this? We need principles. So I established the principles. And then day to day, like I know from my own collaborators that other startups don't do this and that it's really chaotic in some ways. But some people just say, no, that's just the startup life. It's chaotic. Well, it doesn't have to be chaotic. It's just like you can provide structure and still be chaotic within that kind of space and then make a decision and then move on.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
And finally, the demos are amazing because they showcase what we've done to the entire team. I really, really love Microsoft leadership principles. Create clarity, generate energy, and deliver success. Create clarity ties directly into the use of Scrum. Like really, we have this massive goal of creating a successful startup. What does that look like? What do I need to do tomorrow to get to that massively distant point? So that's creating clarity. So I think I bring that with the Scrum methodology. And within that space, you can do whatever you want. Generate energy. The demos bring massive amounts of energy because they showcase, oh my God, the work that my colleague is doing is amazing.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
I mean, because you can't like do a demo to your company, like it brings some bullshit, right? You gotta, I don't say put a performance on, you gotta show what you did, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if someone's like, what's saying like iron sharpens iron, right? You're like, you know, one person's doing great, you can't be, oh, whatever, you know, like you gotta match, at least attempt to match what they're doing, right?
And the other thing the demos bring is that it pushes you to finish. Sometimes I will be done with something and I check it off and everything's great. And I'm doing the demo and then I'm like, oh crap, it doesn't work. Because I'm preparing for the demo because I'm going to show it to the entire team. And like, oh, it doesn't work. So now I need to do this other thing that I didn't anticipate, but I only know about this because I had to demo it. I had to use it. Okay. And then the final principle, deliver success. This is something that I want to do. Like I feel we're doing gradually, like we are growing, like we have revenue. Oh my God, like a year ago, that was unthinkable. We have recurring revenue, which is
even better.
Even better. Like people are staying. We have customers referring customers. That is just mind-blowing to how we started. We started with just layers of intent and just going to events and just kind of a very small website. And I like that Scrum forces you to deliver success, like show you how you're delivering success. So that's why I like Scrum.
What advice you have for like new developers?
A new developer for kind of just growing their career.
Don't become a developer.
No. I would say something that I really get a mentor would be the most clear thing that you can do. Get a mentor. Someone that you not admire, but like respect, and you could never, ever talk with this person because they're so smart. Like, no, just do it. And sometimes they will say yes. And don't just say, oh, can I be your mentee? No, like come with a plan. Like it's on you to have a great mentor. Find the things that you need to get better at, create a plan. Well, not create a plan, but like just kind of have a very good understanding of what you want to get, and then go to that mentor. And then maybe don't even say the word mentor in the first meetings. Just say, I have a question. And I know you're really, really good at this. And I was just wondering if I could ask you a few questions. And then once that meeting goes well, and they see that you're really interested and that you're taking their advice, then just say, hey, next month, I'm having this other project. Would you mind? And then it's going to become a mentorship. Don't just come into the first meeting saying, I need a mentor. And will you be my mentor? Will you be meeting me for me to 1 hour every month? Something like that. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Who are your mentors?
The first mentor that I had, like a true mentor, was somebody that I met at a conference. I don't know if she was the first mentor, but she was certainly one of the most impactful mentors. I went to a nonprofit conference because I wanted to learn more about nonprofits because I was running omegaUp, and I saw her I was going to all the finance workshops because that's what I was lacking. I don't really understand finance. And I saw that she was going to all the finance sections as well. And then at the very end of the conference in Bellevue, I saw her leaving, and I just grabbed some courage and I said, I ran, well, not ran, but like kind of said, hey, I noticed that you went to all of the finance sections of this conference. I have a bunch of questions. Would you be open to speaking with me? She said, yes. Okay. And then we met. And then I remember bringing the balance sheet and the income statement and a few other things, very, very basic stuff that I had no idea about, anything about. And she was a nonprofit finance that was her field. And she just kind of said, well, this is how you do it. This is how you balance. This is how you should balance balance sheet. And well, not that deep, but like the basics, the very basics. And then we met again, and then again, and then again, and then again. And then she, up to the point where I said, I would love for you to be on the board of directors. And she said, yes, after some discussion. And then, yeah.
You mean board of advisors, right?
No, board of directors.
Okay, so that is a big deal.
Yeah, so board of directors. And then she, to this day, we haven't spoken much since then, because that was mostly for that. When I stepped down from being the CEO of the nonprofit, then kind of don't have as much contact, but she's amazing. Her name is Amanda.
Who are you mentoring?
I, for the most part, like to think that many of my employees, or the people that work at DevMatch. So for instance, some of my one-on-one meetings are just like, I'm going to give you a news article or something And then you're going to read it. I'm going to read it. And then we're going to talk about it. And that's been great. And then I'm also an instructor at something called Young Entrepreneurs Academy, which is kind of an accelerator for high school students. So I spend a lot of time with high school students, just kind of not teaching, but like instructing or just kind of guiding them through the journey of being an entrepreneur.
So what are things that you like and don't like about being an entrepreneur?
That I like? The freedom, sometimes too much freedom. Sometimes there's like infinite possibilities. You don't know how to move forward. It's just exciting. So much, there's just like adrenaline. There's just like the thing that you're doing has not been done before. And I think that is really, and one of the biggest things is I think having a sustainable business is one of the most challenging things that I will ever do in my life. Like, it is incredibly difficult. And maybe it's just because I choose ideas that are not ideas, but like the things that I choose to work on are maybe, in my mind, rather difficult, because it's not moonshoot kind of thing. It's kind of, and it's some sort of 10-year incremental improvement over what we have today. It's not slightly better. It's a 10-year improvement over what we have today. And I think a lot of people expect entrepreneurs to have this massively brilliant idea that is going to take people to the moon, something like that. So that is something that is both good and bad. Things that I don't like are that making tough decisions in terms of like saying no to an employee, or you recruit a bunch of people. Well, in the process of recruiting so many, one even job description, you have to engage with, I don't know, 50 in my case. And then out of those 50, 10 are really good. Out of those 10, 5 are really, really, really good. And 3 you really, really want to hire. And saying no to the other 2 has been really, really tough. Like, don't take this, like, you're amazing. You are really, really amazing. The other thing that is a negative is that it's kind of long hours. Yeah, it's tough to keep track of your personal life.
Yeah. You have a good point. A lot of people don't realize this. Like, I think stats show that each job has like 250 applications. Those 250, maybe like 10 actually make it the next step, you know. Of those 10, maybe like, I always say 10 get a phone interview 5. And so many people, like, you know, they get an interview, right? They get the job, they get kind of like down. Oh, I get the job. You're the top 5 of 250. Like, you're doing something right? Like, yeah. It's not like you get an interview, right? It is so subjective, right? It could be any kind of reasons.
And the reason that you're making that person number 2 could be completely stupid.
Yep.
Very, very stupid. And so that person could very well be number 1. So telling that number 2 and number 3, because at this point you have already spent a significant amount of time with them. Yep. And so telling them that,
not easy to do.
The information that I have in front of me is making me choose this other person.
Yeah, you number 2 could be very well the best person for the job, but based on information, it's not it.
Yeah. And so telling the other people, and then something that has happened is that first choice doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And then you have to go to the other, you have to go down the ranking.
Yeah. People don't realize this, how subjective is. Like, example I'll use, like, suppose you have like one person doing an interview, right? And they come do an interview at like at 9 in the morning on Monday, right? We'll say 9 in the morning on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
And they're probably not a qualified person for the job, you know, but like they did the research, you know, like, you know, they made a couple of jokes, whatever. The 4 panelists had a great weekend, you know, they're all happy-go-lucky, you know, everyone's in a good mood, you know.
Yeah.
the candidate really answered the questions correctly, but like, he has a good personality, people like him or whatever case may be. And he did a good enough job, right? But still not best qualified, right? So 1 p.m., the best qualified person for the job is coming to interview, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, but at 10 that morning, the one person on the panel found his mother-in-law's coming to stay for a week. So he's like kind of pissed now. Another guy went to go get some coffee at 11, had a wreck, Another panelist pretty much got yelled at by the boss for something what he was supposed to do, right? So they're all not in the best mood at 1 o'clock, right? And the dude that comes at 1 o'clock, like, he knows everything technically, but he doesn't like,
yeah.
And so based on like skills, you should probably hire the person 1 p.m., but who's going to get the job? The first person, right? And it's just like that, Is that right? Is it wrong? Is fair? Not fair? I don't know, but that's the way life is, unfortunately.
That is correct. Yeah. That's kind of what we're trying to change with DevMatch in some ways. Because the talent respects no forms. And so talent is in so many unexpected ways. So the current executive director of omegaUp, Joe, he was telling me that there's this university outside of the outskirts of any big city. It's just a very, very, very small town, and yet they have one of the highest kind of rates of engineering talent that comes to work for big tech. I don't know the highest, but like there's a lot of people from that very particular school that is completely separated from the big cities that you would expect, that is producing amazingly good talent. And one of the other things that I remember at Microsoft, again, I met so many amazing people. One of them, Beatriz, and Beatriz was telling me she's also, well, she is very much into improving the chances of unrepresented individuals in tech. And she was telling me when we were both, where I was the executive director of omegaUp, and she was telling me, we met and she said, Alan, I just went to this Washington State farming city somewhere over here, and they haven't been out of their community. Like you would think in the US, in Washington State, and yet you have people in communities that don't really know outside of where they were born.
Yeah, a lot of people like that.
All they need is somebody that looks like themselves to show them that it is possible to do something different. And to me, that was very meaningful, because it doesn't really, it's not about teaching them how to do a for loop. You don't have to teach them how to, you don't have to give them a computer. All you have to do is to get them to want it. And they will find the means. In many cases, not always, of course. But if you get them to want it, they will find a way to get a computer, to do a for loop, to get a job, to be successful. In many cases, not always, of course. And all that you need to get them to want it is to show them that somebody like them was able to do it, or is doing it right now. So all you have to do is just kind of be there and tell them sometimes your stories, sometimes what you went through, sometimes it'll match what they are doing. Sometimes it was really special to hear from her. Yeah.
Alan, how does DevMatch fail?
Oh my God, so many ways. It can fail as a business, but still be a success in making and improving someone's life. It can fail both as a business and in improving anybody's life. So fails as a business if we don't, in so many ways, like we are unable to attract investment that we need to build a platform. It can fail as a business if we are targeting the incorrect ideal customer profile. It can fail if we have a team that simply is unable to create the platform, it can fail. If me, I say this sometimes, if me as CEO, I am so greedy with the startup that I am unable to incorporate ideas and incorporate people that think differently than me, and many other ways, but those are the things that are top of mind.
Yes. So talk some more about how DevMatch got started, where you're focusing right now, what your big vision for the company is moving forward.
Yeah. DevMatch started because when I was at omegaUp, I realized that we had a massive database of students and their demonstrated skills. And then at the other hand, we have a massive pool of companies that want to hire talent. And it was just like obvious to me that we could connect the two. And I said, as a nonprofit, we should be able to connect the two. And that will only give us more funding so that we can help even more people. But nonetheless, I was unable to help or to guide the startup in that direction. I tried really, really hard, hired consultants, started the dev work myself. I did a bunch of stuff, but I was unable to work an agreement with the board of directors, actually. And I said, you know what? No, this isn't working. So I'm going to step out, really learn what leadership means, and then I might do something else. And then DevMatch came to be when I was at Microsoft looking at all those resumes. I already knew that this was cooking in my brain, but I already knew that DevMatch was cooking even more when I was looking at all those resumes, and I was just like thinking, this is useless. This is just not a great way of finding talent. And we launched during the Masters of Science in Entrepreneurship. I knew I was presenting my previous startup that nobody understood fully, the composable e-commerce. And I was just kind of feeling frustrated. And I said, you know what? I'm going to pivot. I'm going to transition completely. I'm going to shut that down. And then I'm going to work on DevMatch. And so that's how it started.
Okay. And what are you focused on right now?
Right now, we're focusing on those core 4 priorities, which is having a contributor platform. So the point of DevMatch is that anybody can create assessments. So we're focusing on creating a platform where anybody can create assessments. That means incredible UX and technical capabilities that allow you to create technical assessments in DevMatch, getting users, getting people to actually solve assessments on DevMatch. One of the amazing things that we can do is that if we have an assessment that tests you on, I don't know, Node.js, web development. And then we give you an assessment on something completely different that you don't know, that for some reason we know you don't know, that is, I don't know, assembly. We can track how much with enough assessments, we can track how much it takes you to learn something new. Why is this important? Because when we were doing customer development interviews, we were asking some of the engineers, what is the most important talent that an engineer can have? And they were saying the ability to learn something new. And so if we can not only know that you know something right now, but we can somehow track and measure how good you are at learning something that you have never seen, that's meaningful. Because now we can show the company, this person knows this right now, and this is their index or their weight or their score on their adaptability or their ability to learn something new. So that's something that we're looking forward to.
And how about your future?
So, yeah, I didn't finish the other 2 priorities. That was creating users, generating users. Then there's investment, and then there's customers, and then investments. The future, all these kind of help each other out. In fact, when I put it in the presentation, it's just kind of a circle. And the future for me looks like DevMatch is the platform where you can run technical assessments. So a lot of people give me grief that there's HackerRank, there's LeetCode, there's Codility, there's all those things. But there's no clear winner. When I show DevMatch to candidates, they still tell me, this is new. This is amazing. This is something that is different from what I've seen from the other things. And that is something that I don't think I have been able to articulate to investors. So everybody thinks that there are a million tech assessment platforms out there, and there are. But our kind of guiding principles are different. My challenge is that with AI and large language models, all of those assessments are in an instant done. And they are now moving on to better things. Now that's bad for us because they're going to land here. I have no doubt. And it's good because they are big companies. They're looking for the technology where to do this, which means that we can exit through an acquisition.
So next question, and obviously don't answer this like some kind of secret sauce thing, right? But like, there's so many coding languages. I mean, there's Microsoft Azure, Rackspace, AWS, on and on, right? How y'all building these assessments?
That is the core technical problem of DevMatch. We don't build the assessments. We build the infrastructure that allows anybody to create an assessment. What does that mean? So we give you, so all assessments require, I don't know, test cases. Sure. They all require some sort of computing mechanism that allows you to run these evaluators. So what we're saying is, let's build that basic infrastructure that allows you to create and run the assessments. In the same way that GitHub allows you to put code repositories in. They're not creating like the latest technology in open source. They just are the infrastructure that allows you to put your open source stuff in here. So that's kind of what we're doing. We want to create the, I guess, the GitHub of technical assessments.
Okay. So your platform, is it more for like for non-tech founders versus tech founders?
It is right now very much for technical founders. But the hope is that in the future, after we pass the hump of software engineering, much like Stack Overflow did, Stack Overflow started with a technical question Q&A site. And then they decided that, hey, this approach of Q&A is really helpful. And it doesn't really have to be about software. It can be about anything, cooking, English, math. So they decided to open the Stack Exchange kind of organization. And then now they have a bunch of stuff. That's exactly what we're doing. So we're starting with software engineering because that's how it started. That's where the money is. That's where the knowledge is. That's where we know that the pain point right now is, because we experience it. But what we want to do is kind of move on to other verticals, other industries. So at some point, you will be able to do a question about marketing. Actually, you can do that right now, but we don't really, that's not what we're laser focused on. But ideally, you can have DevMatch assessments for anything. And that's kind of where we're going.
Who is your perfect customer?
The ideal customer profile right this instant is a person that has a set of 5 or 6 titles. One of them software engineer, another one hiring software engineer, lead software engineer, that work in a company that is 10 to 99 employees in the state of Washington, that works for a company that produces software as their first, as their main competency. They produce software. They are probably in charge of a team that is only in charge of writing code, although they understand what is being done, which is important. Some of their objectives are that they don't necessarily have purchasing power for the company and that they oversee this one team exclusively. So that's who we're targeting right now.
All right. Hey, Alan, let's go and do this demo real fast.
Yeah.
So Alan's going to do a demo of DevMatch.
Absolutely. So DevMatch, let me just move this here. DevMatch is, again, a technical assessment platform that allows you to run technical assessments that are simulations of real-life engineering challenges, as opposed to having algorithmic or data structure-based questions when you're running interviews. So this is what you would do as a recruiting manager or hiring manager. So I have this project demo. You can come into DevMatch and just basically create your project. And then the project is just your way of saying, I want to hire this one individual or this many individuals with this title, and just kind of how long am I willing to set the end and start date. There's a description. You might have another set of administrators. You also have problems. You select the problems from the pool of problems that we have. Right now, there's very few, but there's a few problems right now that allow you to assess web development, machine learning in Python, and a few other small things in HTML. But the core is that anybody can come in and create their own assessments on DevMatch. And the other thing is that you can actually create your own assessments if you have the time and technical ability to create your assessments. And then you start adding your candidates here. Let's say we invite Alan, Gonzalez, and then you put their email, and then you invite them. You can have calibration users. Calibration users are people that you trust, that are kind of good at whatever this task is asking. And then you basically send it to them just to see, hey, what do you think about this assessment? And then whatever they say or they score doesn't really count towards the ranking or the submissions. And that's it. So then you actually send the assessment. We really don't want to create an ATS, but that's kind of what's happening behind the scenes. ATS being the applicant tracking. So right now we use some other technical applicant tracking systems. So now that's it. That's it from your perspective as a recruiter. Let's say you're non-technical recruiter, and then that's all you need. You send something from the pool of candidates to your candidates, and that's it. If you do know a thing or two about what you're hiring for, you can go to the problem, to the Explore page, and create a problem. And then in here, you can create a new problem. It can be either public, because you can let the community use your assessment, or it can be private so that only you can use it. And then in here, we have documentation on how to fill out the all-important code aspect. So the code is what basically tells you what are you going to be asking the candidate, what are they going to be evaluated on, and all those things. And then, as I mentioned, we have a bunch of assessments right now, but we're building the documentation and the platform so that many more people can come in and contribute.
Well, assessments pass fails are like a grade, like A, B, C, D.
I'll show you. So let's say that I invited myself. I actually didn't invite myself because this is your account. But this is what I see. So as a candidate, I received an email, and I go into my email, and then I click, oh, Jason has invited me, and this is what I see. And what I get is this, the arena. You have 1 hour to solve this assessment. And
like they can't take a break. They can't like pause or anything. It's like 1 hour.
It's 1 hour. It's 1 hour. And I know it's tough, but it's really the best way to really be able to compare one to another. Because sometimes you give assessments and then you get a really good assessment answer, and you don't know if this person took 8 hours. That's why it looks so great. And the other hand, you have another person that submitted something that looks just enough. They did exactly what they were asked to do, they only took 45 minutes. So what we said is just like every single assessment is 1 hour. And the other thing is that we asked a bunch of candidates, a bunch of people that are usually taking assessments, and they said, I am tired of taking assessments that are 5-6 hours long. So
that's ridiculous right there.
That's kind of the thing. Now, this is an assessment. This is actually the assessment that we created for you, Jason. So as you can see, we have a realistic assessment, which it says, you must complete a few pending resources for this human resources backend service. You have a GraphQL endpoint that uses DynamoDB, which happens to be the real case. And then here's what I want. The list users unit test is failing because blah, blah, blah. The update user API is broken. We need a new employee account field. So things that you would come in and ask your developer if they were coming to work tomorrow. Now, the other thing is that, as you can see, it is not that we provide you with a.
So how do you come up with this assessment, right? Like just something like you research it on how, I mean, because it's pretty, it's pretty detailed, right? I mean, like.
Ideally, in the scaling plan, you would do this yourself or your engineer.
Okay.
Because we're targeting companies that already have some sort of engineering capabilities because they hiring more. Like startups hire one engineering talent and then that's it for like a year, and then they hire more. But ideally, you would already have somebody that knows what they're doing.
But see, I think what you're doing, I think this would be golden for like non-tech startup founders. Right?
Absolutely. I don't
obviously be more work on your part because, like, you know, like me, I have no idea how to do this right.
Yeah.
But I think there's so many tech founders, non-tech startup founders, like are going through so many tech people, right? Either because like my own story, you know my own story, right? You're like, it's been a fucking a shit field, right?
Yes.
But like something like this will help so many non-tech founders like be successful, I think. Or at least increase the chance of them being successful.
Absolutely. Some people
and maybe you charge the non-tech founders more money. I don't know.
Well, that's a great idea. Someone called this the kind of your co-pilot when you're hiring technical talent. And the idea is that you don't have to come up with all this. Like this is custom made for you. Like we took the steps. But at some point, we're going to have enough assessments that one of them is going to be close enough to what. So you don't even have to create it.
You know, like a lot of tech people, like, you know, they say they're doing, but they don't really do, you know, a lot of, you know, bullshit going on, you know, like, yeah.
And the other thing that we did with the pro seed that we spoke about earlier is that we said, well, can we create some sort of coding, some sort of program or an add-on that is going to create the assessments on the fly just for you? Like we can go into your website, see how it's built, at least the front end, and just create an assessment just for you. Yeah. Maybe that would be amazing.
Like I know you focus like you said, engineering teams already, but I just think it's a game changer for non-tech founders, right? Like if I was advised, I would say, hey, like maybe spend more time like focus on non-tech founders, right? Because like I know so many non-tech founders here in Seattle have trouble like finding tech talent. This would like be a godsend to them.
It will be a godsend.
At a cost, of course.
And let me show you how I, as a candidate, will do this. So I come in and I look at the Git repository. And again, this is not given to you, like it's not pre-made. Like you need to know how to use Git, Git being the version control system that this problem uses. And again, the Git service is not really tied to this problem. It's not really tied to DevMatch. It can be anything. You can use anything. You can use GitHub. We have problems that use GitHub actually. But in this case, we use a private Git repo that is hosted by us, that is created just for you. So in this case, we say, I don't know, the update user API is broken. So now I need to kind of look for where this thing is. And this, the thing that I'm doing right now is essential. So you don't want somebody that just kind of, you tell them what to do, and they look for it, and then, oh, I found it. Yes. No, navigating code from somebody else that somebody else wrote, massive skill that you need to have, because more often than not, you're going to come to projects that have already been created for you, that have been created by your previous developer, and then the previous developer, and then the previous. So what you want is somebody that knows where things are. And maybe the names are not kind of the best, but that's kind of reality.
Like this English, to be honest with you, right?
Yeah. So it is for some people that apply. That is massive. We get people that apply, open the assessment, and then they bail because they don't really know how to do it. That's great because you save them time, you save your time yourself. And even though they don't know what they don't know how to fix it in the 1 hour time slot that they have, what is being asked of them in the job.
Does anyone come back and say an hour is not enough time?
They say, well, some of the recent feedback that I remember is that this is certainly something that is pressured, like you feel the pressure of the 1 hour thing, but it's not undoable.
Yeah,
it's definitely not undoable. This assessment that I'm showing you right now is brand new, so we're probably having to tweak it.
And you did all this yourself, or were you developers who did this?
This one I did myself. Yeah, the developers work on everything else. So, for instance, the arena, the actual arena, like the submit, the time left, everything, like all the structure, the other developers did. But the assessments are always.
But definitely, sometime pretty soon you gotta like the other people do this, right?
Yeah,
obviously you can't do yourself.
As a matter of fact, today this sprint is when, for the very, 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 very first time in the history of DevMatch, somebody else is creating an assessment. Okay. So that's amazing. Anyways, you come here and then you make changes. Let's say, here is my change. This is just a comment. It is not going to be meaningful to anything. Now, how do you push your changes? You did something. How do you push it? You do a commit. Why? Because that's what you would do. On the real job, and then you push. And then I typed fast, but what I did stops people. So even just from the Git URL to the where you have the code, some people say, oh, it doesn't work. This GitHub repository doesn't work. I'm like, no, this is not a Git repo. This is not a GitHub repo. It's a Git repo. And if you have some experience, you'll know that this is not a GitHub. And this has nothing to do with GitHub for some reason. And then again, you push, and then here's where we come in as DevMatch. You submit. Now the submission, what it's going to do is going to take what you've done and run through some tests. And now you have this thing. And now this thing is going to automatically evaluate against the test cases that we have given you and see if what you've done really does indeed satisfy the test cases. So this is critical because, number one, it tells the candidate what they're missing. If they score 0, now they know why. If they score 100, now they know why. And this is the other pillar that during the customer development interviews we learned. Some people spend their time doing an assessment and they don't get any feedback. They just get ghosted. And so at the very least, you now know by using DevMatch that, hey, you got all the test cases.
So basically you're adding value to these candidates,
candidates
at no cost to them, right?
To the candidates, yes, just by participating, and that accrues to the value that they kind of relate to the company.
So you have all these developers get better.
Yes.
What happens if someone like accidentally click submit? Can they what happens? They
can submit again. They can submit again. I can submit again.
Okay.
So
you can take the assessment multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But yeah.
Each one has to be within an hour. Okay.
Yes. So right now we have some time left. So I click submit, and right now this thing is being evaluated, and it'll give me an assessment of how well I did on every single test case that I'm doing right now.
From the assessment you've done so far, what percentage of people have actually passed the assessments?
That depends on the assessment. So we have an example over here. So let me give you an example. So now I'm going to go back to the recruiter dashboard. Let's say that you sent out your assessment to 100 candidates or so. and now you're back, you want to see how they did, and you look at the pipeline, and the pipeline tells you, okay, so I had 51 candidates that I sent out this to. 10 of them were invited. For some reason, I didn't invite, maybe because they didn't have authorization to work in the US. So I only invited 10. 8 opened the problem, and 8 completed the problem, but only 6 actually.
That's interesting that 2 didn't submit if they completed. That's interesting right there.
That happens all the time.
Does it?
Yeah, because
you think it's because they think they didn't do a good job at it.
They don't understand what's going on. Yeah. In some cases, like they know it, and they tell us, which I very much appreciate. They come into the assessment. Because when you're applying, you apply to 100 jobs, right? Yeah. And then some of them you don't really know what's going on, but you still apply, and then you might pass the interview, but you don't really know.
Well, if you complete it, you would think you take one extra step to submit the button, right?
I mean, yeah, but some people just come in, read it, and number one, they either don't, like we're saying, they're like, no, I don't really know graph or something, or they don't want to.
Yeah.
That is the other massively important thing. So they say, oh, you know what? I don't want to work in web development more. I want to work on iOS. And I see that this is web development.
Yeah, like with assessment, you don't actually say the name of the company, right? Like you don't say this assessment for Kevin's HR, this assessment for, like, ABC company. Okay, so it's not like they get this assessment for Kevin's HR. Let me use this Kevin's HR. Ain't no way in how I want to work for this guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In your case, we did it because you said, yeah, it's okay to use your name and your code and all that stuff. But in other cases, we don't use it.
Okay.
And then the colors here are the sources, the different sources. Maybe some of them were recruited via LinkedIn. Some of them were recruited via Handshake.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah.
So you know where people are coming from. And some people submit, some people don't. And this is the all-important ranking. Let's say 8 people that submitted.
So Laura got 100.
Laura got 100. So you can see, okay, Laura opened the project on this time, and then they immediately scored 100.
One thing I like about this, like, let's suppose, like, I'm making this up, don't take this personal. People listen, like, suppose you have a company, right? And you're like, you know what? Let's suppose Laura's like a redhead from Ohio, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, from Michigan, you hate people in Ohio, right? Like, I'm a fan, I hate Ohio people, whatever case may be. But you're like, damn, the business person, like, fuck, she's got a fucking 100.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I could overlook her being from Ohio, right?
Well,
which I really like about this.
You're alluding to a feature that we have not implemented, only talked about. But when you do this process, you can choose to do that in the settings, so you will be able to, you won't see their names.
Okay.
So you cannot see, all you have to do is just send the assessment, wait a few days, and then say, give me the top 10%.
Yeah.
And then only then you will see who's who.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, we see people that submitted. Let's take a look at Laura. So let's say you have an engineer on your team. You can take a look at exactly what is it that they changed. So in this case, this is a demo. So even though I changed something else, we're seeing something else. But you can see their code. You can see Laura's code and see how well they did. And the very important thing is that you can use this as a starting point for the final round of interviews. Yeah. So you can come, you can invite Laura and say, you're invited to the interview and we're going to go over your solution. So you're going to ask questions about why did you do it this way? Why not this way? What are the downsides of your implementation? All those things. And that is just a much better way of doing an interview rather than starting from scratch, even though they already spent time, an hour, understanding this problem.
Yeah. And I suppose you interviewed these 4 people, right? Laura, Kathy, Lee, and Rio, right? To me, like, Laura is like heads above everybody else. But then again, like, you got to work with people, right? So maybe Laura's like a toxic person, right? And just, and maybe the person who scored 25, like, say, like, I love this, I love that, Yeah. So it's an indicator of, man, like, you can't ignore 100, right?
It is an indicator. And what we're saying is that this is only like a screening assessment is mostly for who do you not want to hire, not who you want to hire.
Yeah.
It's just who do you not want to hire. You can now spend your time talking to Norton, Kathy, Rayo, Lee, and Laura, you know, and you're going to have 5 meetings and you're going to spend some time with them. And, but guess what? They already, well, not Norton, but both the top 4 already demonstrated that they have some idea of what needs to be done. So you won't be spending time with the other 51, you know? That's where we save. And this is so powerful.
This is a time saving.
It is so much time saving.
And startups have, time is such precious commodity.
And here's the massively good part that I like to emphasize. For your case in particular, Jason, this is your code. This is your code. This is Captain's HR. So when they match this, when they match your interview for cultural fit, and then they start working the next Monday, they already know. You already know that they know. They demonstrated this to you. That's the power of DevMatch.
Seems to be a powerful thing. Definitely got something here.
And then, of course, you can come in as a candidate and then just solve problems for fun, and because
are you going to gamify that some kind of
absolutely way? Absolutely. That's why that was the main aspect of one of our UX researchers, Hannah. She spent a lot of time. She created 2 papers on how we're going to gamify this thing. So anyways, this is DevMatch.
Nice. Thanks for the demo, Alan.
Absolutely.
So what's how do people reach out to you on social media?
Well, I am mostly active on LinkedIn, and I have a Twitter account that I used to be more active on. And that's pretty much it. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn.
Okay. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I hadn't asked you yet, or anything else you want to talk about?
There's one thing that I love to talk about, which is customer development. I am obsessed with customer development. And that is the one thing that I learned with DevMatch, as opposed to my other startups, is how you do customer development, or more specifically, customer discovery. So customer discovery is done by doing interviews. And the most important thing that I wanted to mention is that it is not about you going to your potential customer and telling them about your idea. And because if you do that, you're just going to introduce a ton of bias. You're going to tell them that you care about this, that if they don't like it, they're going to hurt your feelings and all sorts of things. And if you come and you tell them, I'm working on this idea, I've been working on this for a year, let me, here it is. What do you think? Well, most people are going to say, this is amazing. This is great. You're amazing. You're going to be a rich entrepreneur, something like that, you know, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Will they even buy the thing if it existed? Absolutely. Well, most cases, no. So what you need to do is go to your target customer profile and make it about them, 100% about them. Who are you? Just to make sure that they are indeed the right individual that you want to be targeting. What do you spend most of your time on? What are your struggles? What do you hate the most about this? And then slightly introduce the process that you're working on. What do you like about recruiting? What do you dislike about recruiting? If you had a magic wand, you could do anything about recruiting technical talent, what would it be? And guess what? At the end, they might not even mention anything about technical assessments, and that's fine. But you need to record that. You need to be able to say, well, you know what? We talked to 50 people and none of them said anything about technical recruitment, technical assessment platforms. And that's huge, because even if you have a massively, insanely good technical assessment platform, if people are not looking for it, you will not succeed necessarily, or it's harder. You need to do it some other way. But they need to, in some ways, be affected by this problem and in the process of looking for alternatives. Otherwise, they're not going to look for you. Otherwise, it's a problem that they can live with. Otherwise, it's just something that is just a pain in the ass, but like, it's not that big of a deal. So I'm not incentivized to move to something new. So You need to come in, learn about them, see what they want, see what they need, and then you do the second part of the interview.
That's a good point. A lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that their competition is like another company. A lot of the competition is like a person that's not changing their ways, like doing the thing, like that's still doing Excel or fax machines, right? Or not wanting to change.
Why would they? I mean, it's more. It's a lot of pain to change something that is already implemented. And yes, you hate it, but do you hate it enough?
Yeah, do you hate it enough
to be looking for alternatives?
Like I know I'm not, I'm making enough profit. I have a good living. Like why improve?
Absolutely, yeah. So, and if they're not looking for new alternatives, then you're not a painkiller. You're a vitamin. Sure, a vitamin is something that you could be better at if you use it. It's not immediately obvious, but it seems good. You could take it, and it would be good for you. A painkiller is something that you absolutely cannot work if you don't have a painkiller.
That's a damn good analogy, right?
Well, there. It's not mine, unfortunately.
No, it's not.
Something I learned in the business school.
Yeah, man, that's a classic quote right there.
It is very popular. Yeah. Painkiller versus vitamin. Yeah.
Oh man.
You're looking to be the painkiller, not a vitamin. You don't want your customer to be, I'm not gonna buy. If they don't buy the vitamin this month, nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You want their world to collapse if they don't have you.
I like that quote a lot. I was gonna ask you something else. I got brain locked.
Well, I was about to mention the second part of the interview of the customer development. So now that you know what are their pain points, now you collect some of the data, and then you go again. And now you do the product discovery phase, which is like, hello, Jason. If you recall, we had a meeting the other month, and you mentioned that you had this problem, right? Yes. You mentioned that maybe a problem like this would be solved by a product that would look like this. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. In that case, and only in that case, you come in and then you show your demo. And you tell them, okay, here's the demo. And then at the end, you ask, yes, I would love that. Yes. How much would you pay? $200 per month. I would pay $1,000 per month for this. Okay. What are the disadvantages? You start asking questions about this specific thing. They're like, yes, very intrigued. And then what do you do next? Give them a letter of intent. And then you write, Jason Cavness, would buy this thing for $1,000 because that's what they said. If this thing were to contract, it's not binding, and then you give it to them, and then you see if they sign it. Yeah. And guess what? The guy, for me, the guy that said I would pay $1,000, didn't sign it.
He didn't sign it.
Didn't sign it, even though it's non-binding.
Yeah.
But that's yet another way of you getting kind of the attention, not the attention, but like the extracting the truth from the customer, what they really want and what they really would pay something for. And so anyways, after that, there's more phases. But notice the most important thing here is that you didn't have to build anything to get to this point.
Yeah. So you've bootstrapped so far, right?
Well, not really, because I invested my own money.
It's still bootstrapping, right? I mean,
and then the Johns Foster, which gave us another 25K. So I would say it's half and half. But we haven't raised from an institutional investor or angel investor.
Like that.
No.
Are you gonna do that like anytime soon, or you still like you have like metrics and tracks you want to gain first?
I do have metrics and tracks that I want to get to, but I think you can start fundraising. I will start fundraising very soon, and I'm leaning towards angel investors right now. I've met with a lot of VCs, and I think we're not ready for them yet. Mm-hmm. And I want to find somebody that sees what we have for the value that we provide, right now more than for the business.
Yeah.
At some point, this is going to be a business that is going to be a no-brainer that people want to invest. But right now, where we are, it's more about we need somebody that is probably an angel investor that is aware that this is a problem and that this is a potential solution to that problem, and that is willing to put some money into it.
Cool. So anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's
okay,
it.
cool.
Well, I feel bad because I didn't ask you any questions.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So can you give us any advice or wisdom or anything you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, I think just kind of have fun is what I would say. Take care of your family and yeah, just have fun.
Thanks. Alan, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason, for inviting me.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.